Thanks for tuning in, guys. This episode is brought to you by Old Man Copper, Smoke Eater, Mustache Wax. Literally smells like a freaking house fire. Keeps you thinking about jobs all day long. Use discount code COPPER, COPPER. Get you 10% off. Good dude. Check him out. Instagram, Facebook, website, oldmancopper.com. Thank you.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. I had the privilege to sit down with Keith Freeman. He joined the American Fire Service in 2007. Didn't miss, kind of took a couple breaks, realized that he needed to get back on the job. He's now been on the job for 6 years in his current department. He got married a day after reporting for his physical, and his wife was gracious enough to allow him to postpone the honeymoon. So that's a good woman right there for his start date. He was sworn in as a lieutenant about a year ago, and he's been teaching at NIPSTA, which is their regional training academy in his region, for the last 5 years. He's been a company mentor for the last 3. So again, welcome, Keith. Thank you for coming on the show, my brother. Did I miss anything in your intro, or would you like to add anything?
No. Thanks for having me. I think that's plenty. That's pretty much it.
All right, perfect. Well, so just to kind of give the audience a little backstory how we met. So we met through our buddy Orion. He was on the truck company's God's Work, which is one of my favorite episodes so far. And he got us in contact. And dude, we've been talking a bunch of times off camera, and just how your system works, how your region works, and pretty much like all the nuances, but the struggles you guys have to do. So without robbing anything from you, and then I'll let Keith kind of take it from here, but you work in a smaller fire department in the suburbs of the south side of Chicago City, right outside of the city. And you guys are, I don't know how else to put it. You have pretty much your whole city is a ghetto. You guys burn, and you do not have the equipment or the staffing to kind of back up the volume and the quality of calls that you guys have. So please kind of tell the audience how you guys work, what you're doing right now, and kind of the nuances in your city on the demographics, the jobs, everything, if you don't mind, my brother.
Yeah. So I mean, you hit the nail on the head with the demographics, right? Like we're just south in the south side of Chicago, right? And we're a city of about 20,000 people last I checked. And, a ton of abandoned buildings, and then one of the things that they tell you when you come on as a rookie is like, look, this is an abandoned building, but it's probably not abandoned. So I've heard quotes all the way up to like 20% of our abandoned buildings have squatters in them. And in my experience, pushing a bandos, ton of times, more times than not, I would say, when I push an abandoned building, there's either somebody in there, like there's actually a person physically in this abandoned building while it's on fire, and we're going to bring them out, or they're coming out the front door as we're going in. And a lot of times when they're coming out the front door, they're coming out the front door and it's not like, oh, hey, I was messing around in this abandoned building. They're coming out the front door and they're like, hey, the fire's in my back bedroom. It's like, well, this is an abandoned building, but yeah, all right, we're going to your back bedroom. So a lot of the abandoned buildings are actually inhabited. And then we cover the city across 3 stations, and we have a 7-man minimum. So the way that works in my city is the main station is going to be station 1, and we've got a captain there, and he kind of acts a little bit more like a battalion chief. So the captain, every shift has a captain. The captain is in charge of the fire department for the day. So he's in charge of all 3 stations, what's going on with him. He's riding out on the main rig, and then he'll get an engineer and he'll get a backstep guy. That's a guarantee. And then to fill our 7-man minimum, we got those other 2 stations. So if we're at minimum for that day, we're going to have an engineer of some kind out at our outlying stations and some sort of officer. Now that officer might be a step-up guy, or he might be like an actual lieutenant. A lot of times we're trying to fill those spots with actual lieutenants. So every shift should have a captain and 2 lieutenants. But there are days where, because of Kelly days or vacation or something like that, we've got a guy swinging over in some of those spots. On a really, really great day, like if we're crushing it, everybody, like Tuesday, our Kelly days are every 7th. And so a lot of guys kind of like the poverty pick is like a Tuesday or Thursday. Everybody wants that Wednesday or that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which you're just not going to get. But like Tuesday or Thursday is when we're riding heavy, and we might have 10 or 11 guys. So, you might get it to a point where you've got, 4 guys down at 1, and then you got 3 guys out at 2, and then maybe 3 guys out at 3. And that's pretty rare. Station 2 is an engine company only. Station 3 is a jump company between the engine and the truck. And then just to give you an idea how that works, if there are 3 guys riding out there, we're going to split that crew. We're going to have 2 on the engine, and one's going to bring the truck. Now, if we got a report of a structure and there's only 2 guys riding out at 3, they're just going to bring the truck. So that's kind of how that works. so that the manpower is a little, limited. They will also usually, and it kind of every captain does it a little different, but like I'm out at two a lot. Out at two is our main mutual aid station. So we're going a lot to the communities just to the east or just to the west of us or just to the north or just to the south that are a lot like us. And I will get my extra guy last. So if it's minimum, it's going to be 3, 2, and 2. And we get that extra guy, he's probably going out to 3. We get another extra guy, he's probably going to go to 1. And they know that because the guys just to the east of us are actually busy too. They burn pretty good. And a lot of times, like if I'm not burning in town, I'm taking my manpower out of town. So if they send me that extra guy, there's a good chance that me and that extra guy are going to be out of town. So does that kind of give you an idea, like the demographics and how we're running our rigs?
Yeah, it does. And so a couple questions I was typing as you're talking. So you said your city's about 20,000 people. How many square miles, just to tell the audience?
Man, so it's kind of hard. We go, I'd have to make a guess. I don't know, maybe like 2.5
Okay.
by 3 miles, So what is that? 5.5, 7 miles, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, but that's good because I want to put it in perspective for the audience because it's not 20,000 people over, you know, 50 square miles. I mean, so
No, no,
that's
we're
densely
jammed in there.
populated suburb. So, and
Yeah,
then I love the fact that you guys and we are the same way, thank God. But like we always say, hey, a building isn't vacant or the building isn't clear until we say so. Even if it's a
100%.
occupied structure and Grandma Schmerkins is sitting outside saying, "Oh, Sonny, I'm the only one here," we are still going to do an active search. Just because I don't know. I don't know if Grandma's got dementia. I've never met her before, right? So did she forget that her husband's in the room? Did she forget that her grandkids are there? So like even if a resident tells us that, hey, everyone's out, we're still going to do a primary just to make sure. But I like the fact that you guys don't assume a vacant's a vacant. We always say all the time, just because taxes aren't being paid on the building doesn't mean people aren't living in there. You know, it's like that old saying of
100%.
what started the fire? It wasn't mice with matches the last time I checked. I haven't seen it yet. You know, mice running down with a little lighter,
Yeah,
starting everything on fire. But the other question I had about your city, because you said, every shift has a lieutenant on there. One of the stations has a captain. He kind of acts as a BC. Do you guys also have battalion chiefs in your city, or is that a non-existing rank?
it's not that it's a non-existing rank. We don't have battalions. So our rank structure goes, there's the chief of the department,
Mhm.
there's the deputy chief, 3 captains. Each captain has 2 lieutenants. Each shift should have 2 engineers, which is a little bit interesting. Guys will ask me about that. Sometimes they're like 3 stations, 2 engineers. We just accept that one of the stations is probably not going to have a running engineer. And then underneath that, and I love this so much, and it's such we've been a department since about 1891, and man, just even in our contract, we've held on to some old school traditions, and so we don't have firefighters, we have pipemen. So in the contract, when you look at our rank structure, we have pipemen, engineers, lieutenants, captains, and then the deputy chief and chief. And then actually, it's old school enough that we have fire lieutenants, fire captains, because there was a period of time where we had some other stuff going around. But yeah, so no battalion chiefs, just the captains, and the captains run the fire, right? So I'm the junior lieutenant on my shift, so there's me and my senior lieutenant, and then my captain on second shift. And when the captain is off, the senior lieutenant swings down to 1, and he's in charge. And then when the captain and the senior lieutenant are off, I swing down to 1, and I'm in charge. And the captain runs the fire. The chiefs, for the most part, for my entire career in Harvey, they don't come to the fires. They don't show up. And it's not that they don't show up. They got a lot of other things going on, and they might show up, but they don't take command. The captain is running the fireground. He's making the calls. He's running the radio. He's saying what goes where. And so it's real interesting, especially as a junior lieutenant, because it's like this perfect place for me to be, because 9 times out of 10, we're getting a job. I'm going in. I'm running the boys. I'm gonna be in there pulling ceiling, doing whatever it is that we need to do. But every once in a while, I got to go down to 1, and I got to stand out there and make those strategic calls and run the fireground.
All right, so I got a question for you, and you might have an answer for this, you might not, but it's okay either way. So I was talking to over the weekend. We were talking off camera. I was down in Mississippi teaching and helping out with the Old South Fools Fire Conference, which was great. And their location is very close to Memphis, Tennessee. There's a bunch of Memphis firemen there, and just talking to those boys and going back and forth, they they burn a lot, just like you guys do. They have their, I shouldn't say their culture. What's been happening lately with those guys is you'll get a bunch of young guys that come in, right? They catch a bunch of jobs, get a lot of experience, but then after 4 or 5 years, they're like, hey man, like it's cool running all these jobs, but I'm not supported. For theirs isn't a staffing issue. It's completely different. But do you guys see a lot of turnaround in your city? But more importantly, what I really want to ask you is, so you have 6 years with your current department. It sounds like a great department, but at any point are the guys or you in particular be like, hey man, why don't I just drive north to the big city and then run 5 dudes on a freaking rig and still catch a bunch of work? Like, why? And no offense, I hope this is an offensive topic, but why stay? Like, why stay with your department right now?
It's so there's a couple things. And look, one of them is, there's no question that one of them is we don't run EMS. We don't have in-house EMS.
Okay,
Yeah, your
well,
eyebrows just went up, right?
well, never mind.
So
You know what? I'm leaving. I'm gonna lateral over, and disregard. No one listened to this episode. I'm going up. I'm going with you guys.
yeah, and so and when I say we don't run EMS, I don't mean like I have an EMT, but I don't. There's no box in the house. Look, there's no box in the house,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't have my EMT.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's one of the most fair hiring processes I've ever been through too, right? Like,
Oh, okay.
which is a weird thing, because again, being in my area and things being what they are, everybody's got their hiring complaint, right? Like certain
Mm-hmm.
cities are looking for certain things, and they kind of mold that process to be what it is. Well, our pay is relatively low comparatively. Now, if you could find another like apples to apples department where it's like, no, look, you don't run EMS at all, right? Like the only time I run EMS is so I was coming off shift the other day. We got a rollover, and I went there. We had a patient ejected, but I'm going as a fireman. I'm going to stabilize the vehicle, do extrication, and then help the medics get the guy off the ground, right? Get him off the ground, get him back in the ambulance. If the medics who run the contract for our city need a lift assist, like we'll bang out for the lift, and I go and I lift the patient, and I put him on the thing, and then it's like, look, they're on your stair chair. This is your stair chair. If you need help with me assisting you down these stairs, I'm 100% here to do that. I'm 100% here for the citizens. I want to see everybody get a high quality of service, right? But I'm not picking your bags up. I'm not running things from your box. So for sure, no EMS is a huge thing, right? Like just telling somebody like, hey, guess what? When the tones go off, it's an auto alarm, it's a fire alarm, it's a car crash, it's a CO, it's a natural gas leak, it's wires down, a structure fire. Like that's it. You're just here to be a tradesman, a fireman. That helps a ton. We do lose guys to the big city 100%. Like every once in a while, somebody will kind of decide like, hey, I want to go see what Chicago's about, or I want to go make a whole bunch of money in one of these other outlying towns. Because at the end of the day, people need to feed their families, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you got a good salary when you leave, you get a better pension. We do okay financially, but I think one of the things that really ends up attracting people is, and I teach with a fair number of Chicago guys at NIPSTA, we're burning good. And then the thing that's, I think, it's a real feather in my cap. It's a huge point of pride for me being a fireman where I am is, so we're showing up on a day with 7 guys. Now, right off the top, you can just go ahead and take 3 of those guys immediately off, right? Like we got 2 rigs. Those 2 rigs need engineers, and the captain's
Mm-hmm.
staying outside. So we're making our push initially, and we've got mutual aid coming in, 2 in, 2 out is a thing, and we're trying to follow the NFPA stuff, and the chiefs are real good about, getting those mutual aid agreements with the neighboring towns. But look, the neighboring town is a neighboring town, right? He's not coming from in town, and maybe he's busy, or maybe he's on a call, or maybe he's stuck on the highway, or maybe he's stuck on a medical call. But, we're making that initial push and all of those initial decisions with like 4 dudes. And so one of the things that I think hits people right away is like I got my first 2 structure fires on a week of days. So you come into the fire department, you shake everybody's hand, you go off and do whatever you need to do to get your certs up, and then you come back in the fire department and you do 1 week of 8-hour days. And I'll tell you, I hit 2 structure fires in that week of days. And I grabbed my gear. We were running out of a pickup truck because there was no room on any of the rigs for us, and there was enough. We had a big hiring class. We had enough guys that they were just like, hey, here's keys to the pickup truck. The fire's at 100 and whatever. See you
Yep.
there. And the guys went screaming out, and we're all staring at each other like, I don't know where I am, and I don't know what north is. But I grabbed all my gear and threw it in the back. And when we got there, I donned all my gear and I ran up to Cap. I was like, hey, Cap, I don't have an air pack, but can I work the door? And he's like, yeah, kid, you were smart enough to bring your stuff. Start throwing holes in there. And I had 2 of those on my week of days. And just, for me, and I think a lot of guys get this bug. What happens is you see these dudes, you see just 2 hardcore 70s firemen screaming through the front door with fire blown out of a picture window. And that's what it is. And the next thing you know, the fire's out and you're expecting to see a bunch more dudes run in there. And really the only thing that happens is two more dudes go in there with pike poles and they're just, they're searching their asses off. You got guys jumping up, like doing overhaul. And I think that bug bites a lot of people really hard because with the low manpower, it becomes incumbent upon you to become a tradesman very, very quickly. And that's one of the things that they tell you. They're like, listen, kid, being here is like drinking from a fire hose. And then I've had a number of people over my rookie year. That's what we call probies. We just call them rookies, and then we always remind them like, hey, listen, an MLB rookie makes a couple $1 million. So that word's not a dirty word. As a matter of fact, a lot of our rookies kind of wear it with pride. Like, hey, I'm a rookie here. I'm here and I'm going to be a tradesman soon. But they'll just tell you like, hey, listen, you're a rookie, but we don't have the luxury of you not spinning up quickly. Like, and another thing that happens, and it definitely happened to me, my senior guy at the time, he's got 42 years on the job now. Yeah. And he told me when he started 42 years ago that every day, every shift, no matter what, he was guaranteed a full still and a box alarm every day.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, fires obviously have slowed down a little bit. Nobody's running a full still in a box every day. But my guy told me, my senior manager, every day I was guaranteed a full still in a box alarm. And I'll never forget this. And I was like, okay, his name's Jamie. I was like, all right, Jamie, like, what do you need from me today? And he's like, oh, I don't need anything from you other than to pull that pipe and go in and fight the fire. And I kind of looked at him. He's like, rookies here go in, and they go in first. There's no, hey kid, I'm gonna take that pipe from you. There's no, hey, hang back is the doorman or anything like that. Like rookies go in on the nozzle, and it's just a matter of time. We don't have really any rookies who go a 3-month period without getting a first due nozzle fire. It just doesn't happen. So I think that bites people real hard, but we do have turnover. I would say right now, one of the things that is really interesting for the department to navigate is, and I think this is happening in a lot of places, 50% of the department has under 7 years on. Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, right, like it's real easy for things to walk out the door when you do have that high turnover. And then here's the other thing I'll tell you. We are probably one of the only places that you'll ever hear have had financial, how can I say it? The city's had financial problems such that like a number of guys had to sit on the bench for more than like a couple months, so that did happen to us. So it is something that people do ask, like they'll come like, oh, hey, I hear you're a fireman and so, and like, why do you stay? And the funny thing is my friends, a lot of them who are Chicago guys are like, what do you mean? Why does he stay? He doesn't run EMS and the guy's going to go to like 2 fires this week, which is an exaggeration, it's not 2 every week. But the one thing I will say is everybody I know in my department within 5, 6, 7, 10 years at the most will have a day where they have 3 fires in a row. Mm-hmm. So it's just, that low manpower, having to do everything, having that sort of like Marine Corps, like, hey, we get nothing, we do everything kind of mentality. I think it really becomes a badge of pride for a lot of guys.
It is, and I'm proud to have you on the show just because of the kind of amount of work you guys do. The city I work for, we have a large section of the city that is very demographically kind of set up, probably like you guys. So we burn a lot. We have a lot of stabbings, a lot of shootings. I mean, it's a great city to work in for sure. But the difference is if I get on the radio, I can have 5 alarms worth of equipment there in, I don't know, 15 freaking minutes. From big city to small departments to everybody under the sun, and all of us work under the same operating procedure, the same rules. We all talk the same, so it's very seamless, no matter what the color of the truck is, what it says on it, what color their lids are, whatever the case might be. But in your guys' system, and we talk off camera a little bit, but please tell the audience. So you only have 6 years in the department you're in now. Your rookie year wasn't that long ago. How many jobs do you think you had, good jobs, in your rookie year? Just to like kind of let the audience know how busy you guys really are.
Man, like, I always, when people ask me this, I always kind of tell them the same story. You come on and you're like, you got your little notepad. And you're like, I'm going to write down my fire. I don't know, maybe not everybody does that, right? But I think a lot of guys, when they come on, think they're going to keep track of their fires.
Yeah,
and,
I did. I tried to.
And I think it's normal, right? Like
it lasted a week.
Yeah. And you want to like, it's okay to be into the job, it's okay to geek out a little bit, right? Like, and so, all these grizzled veterans in heart, where I work, they're all, they're seeing that, and, you're just like, oh, hey, I'm gonna keep track. And I'll never forget my captain at the time came up to me after one job, and I'm putting the hook back on the rig and helping take up, and he's like, hey, Free, how many fires was that? And I was like, Cap, I don't know. We're about 8 months in, and I stopped counting at 30. And it's just it got to the point where it was like, I'm gonna go to a job this week. I'm gonna go to a job this week. I'm gonna go to a job this week, and I just stopped counting. So hopefully that kind of gives you an idea.
It does. So the next question I have for you, because you guys run so much work, which is great, and I've seen departments go both ways, and my area, the country is very I don't even know the correct word. We're very guilty of this because we're so busy. Um, Training sometimes falls by the wayside. Hey man, I don't have time. We're too busy.
Hmm.
Or do I really need to go continue to train on the basics? We run jobs like we're going to have a job in 2 weeks. We're going to have a job in another 2 weeks or whatever the case might be. Do you guys run into that in your city where let me revamp. How is your training culture because how busy you guys are? And then more importantly, because of your lack of staffing, is there even a training culture at all? Or is it just, you don't even have that luxury because of the lack of guys and then the call volume?
It's interesting. So I was just in charge Saturday, and so we've got kind of a younger crew, and I like to train. Obviously, everybody who goes to a fire academy who instructs likes to train, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you
Yes.
didn't like that, you wouldn't spend a whole bunch of time doing that. You'd go do what other firemen do, and you'd become a plumber or a pipe fitter or a sprinkler fitter, or you'd do carpentry, or you'd open a small business. So, I just naturally like to train. And of course, the guys who surround themselves around me end up kind of getting into that flow too. But like, we were out pulling line for an hour and a half. So we do still train, but for sure that is something that you will hear kind of echoed in the department sometimes, which is like, hey, we're going to go out there, we're going to pull these crosslays off the rig, and guaranteed 12 minutes into pulling that crosslay, we're going to see a big header in the corner of the
Mm-hmm.
city, and we're going to have to bang out for the structure, and we're going to have to like just grab that thing and throw the bundle in the back. But a lot of guys still do go out and train because of the way the city runs. I think there are sets of skills that we're very aggressive engine culture just because of the way we run, right? Like if you caught it earlier, we're running a one-man truck, maybe a two-man truck. It's not ever really a three-man truck. Like I can't remember the last time I saw the truck come out with three dudes on it.
Wow.
And so we're just an extremely aggressive engine culture, extremely professional engine culture. And so there's, like tagging hydrants, making lines on the fly, getting that cross off, that general fire attack, forcing doors, like these are the things that's bread and butter for us because it's exactly what we need to do. We are very much a department of like put the fire out and all of your other problems will either go completely away or start to get a lot better, right? So like if we have victims in the building, when it's on fire, that's victim removal. That's a rescue. We put that fire out, it's an assist, right? Let
Mm-hmm.
me assist you outside, right? And it's not saying that we don't search. We do search. We search aggressively, but we are a very aggressive engine company. So a lot of times when I'm kind of putting training together or asking the boys what they want to go out and do, there are some other skills, like making sure we can throw the 24, making sure we can throw the 28, just generally talking like real basic things like, floor to sill height, floor to ceiling height. That way we know that we can throw 14 on the second floor as long as there's no
Mm-hmm.
walk up. If there is a walk up, maybe we need it. If there's a walk up with 3 stairs, we know we need to add 3 clicks, stuff
Yeah.
like that. So that's the kind of stuff that we like to train on. But for sure, we do have kind of that old school, like, hey, kid, we're going to go to a bunch of fires. So why do I need to go out there and pretend to go to a bunch of fires?
Yeah, so good. I mean, and that is the culture in the American Fire Service right now that I'm trying to fight rapidly. And there's a select few of us that all feel the same way. Unfortunately, we're the minority because I feel like, and if you disagree, please let me know. But even when we do, I hate to even say like mundane trainings, right? Back to the basics. Hey, we're going to spend an hour at this station in this block going back over 24 single man 24s just because, hey man, has it been a minute? It's okay. Right. Have you never? It's okay. Like, let's make sure that you're proficient or you feel more comfortable afterwards. And then I'll hear, training goes really good. And then I'll kind of hear some scuttlebutt afterwards, be like, oh, that was a pretty easy training. And it's just like, well, I hope it was because we're just trying to make sure that your basics are solid because I've heard on another podcast. I think it was the Weekly Scrap. They had asked a question like it was, and I don't remember the guest, but it was something like, "Hey, do you feel like being a master at the basics or proficient at the basics, or knowing a little bit about everything? Which one would you prefer?" And the gentleman had answered saying, "Hey, I would prefer to know a little bit about everything," because he was talking about a rank structure. So I believe he might have been a chief, something along those lines. So, hey, I'd like to know a little bit about everybody's job. And I understand that. I wholeheartedly believe, and I'm curious where you sit. I want to be a master at the basics, because without the basics, we can't do any of the advanced stuff. But more importantly, and I tell the kids I teach all the time, and I've seen it, I've experienced it personally on a shitty call where I got burned. When you are in the highest level of stress you've ever been in, you resort back to your lowest level of training. So I feel like my calling in life is to elevate everyone's lowest level of training, because when you get to that point where you're so stressed out and now you're just strictly going off of muscle memory, I want your muscle memory to be freaking dialed. And again, that's just how I look at it, but I'm curious on kind of how you look at basically that question, and then what do you really focus on, and then what do you focus on with your guys? Because like both of us, we're instructors at regional training facilities, so you're not just impacting guys in your department, you're impacting guys in all these departments around the region. So how do you feel about that? I'm just curious on kind of your mindset when it comes down to the basics and all the advanced skills too.
Yeah, so I think firefighting is basics, and I think that mentality probably comes a lot from my department, right? Because, we do run fire duty. And one of the things that I just remember hearing when I was a rookie was like, hey kid, this ain't that complicated. Forcing that door ain't that complicated. Getting this line on the ground, excuse me, ain't that complicated. Like, and you'll hear it pejoratively, right? Like you'll hear firemen all the time, especially, and it's the really good tradesmen firemen, right? Like the guys who are actual masters at their craft. They'll be like, we got to talk about the new flip whiz bang, flip around, whatever, 96 skidoo.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, but can you building raise the 24 and know dead on that you can get it right when you got to make a pick out of a window. And so I really firmly personally believe that firefighting is the basics, right? Like 90% of the time, it's going to be basic, bare bones, fundamental firefighting. And I prefer to use the word fundamental. I really don't like the word basic, right? Because when you say, "Oh, hey, we're going to go over the basics." Basics tell guys like, go ahead and turn your brain off.
Yep.
Especially like you sit a 15-year guy down, a 7-year guy, you sit the wrong 3-year guy down and you say, "Hey, we're going to go over basics." And that guy's already starting to flip off, right? Like he's already starting to check out. He's like, I don't need to learn how to pull a crossley again. And so I really prefer fundamental, right? Because fundamental is foundational. Foundational is you have to have a rock solid foundation. And just like you said, we do not rise to the level of the occasion. We sink to the level of our training. And that's the thing, right? Like if you've ever watched any tradesman or any craftsman work, right? Like you watch a cabinet maker make cabinets, he's not doing anything crazy. He's running a hand plane, he's cutting dovetails, and everything just fits together perfect because he's got 30 years of experience building cabinets, and it's beautiful to watch. Versus watching somebody who's doing something slick and it's real advanced, and it's not advanced because he's just really good at this foundational technique. And I think really the word for it is slick, right? Like you could look at something and kind of be captured by something that's
Mm.
slick for a few minutes or maybe a few hours, or you can go down a rabbit hole for a little while. But I think really when you watch a tradesman do what it is he does, 90% of the time he's doing foundational basic work. And it's that foundational basic work. Even when okay, it's the 10%, right? We got something super weird going on and we got to get off into the weeds real hard. We can't get off into the weeds if you can't get the foundation laid. Like if we're going up to force this door, we just had a door the other day. We roll up, it's a 2-story frame, 2 apartments, right? Your standard 2 apartments. So the right door is going to go up to the second floor. The left door is the fire door. They're already working in there. Now we know the fire's there. It's probably balloon frame, turn of the century house. So we need to get up to 2. We start with our basic forcible entry, right? We're going to the door. It's your normal outward swinging door. We've already got that storm door not only open but off. Get that thing the fuck out of here. So that storm door is gone, and we're starting to work on that door, right? So there's a drop bar, and it's now so the outward swinging door is gone. Now we got the inward swinging residential door, and this guy had taken a piece of PVC and put it on like the second step of stairs going up, and he put it over the door handle,
Uh,
right? And so you're getting like a weird press on the door. And we're both got bars and I'm hitting my guy in and he just looks at me and he's like, this is a weird thing, right? But he's doing just basic foundational work, right? So he starts to get that crack and then we feel it, right? And you know, if you've ever forced a door with a drop bar, you know what that feeling is. And I'm looking for a bolt pattern and we don't have it. Now we've done what we needed to do, right? We've made the door crack. We've confirmed that this regular forcible entry method that we go through for an inward swinging door is not going to run. And so I turned to the guy and I went, hey, I'm going to take the hinges. But it's from that basic foundation that we get into something that's a little bit more, fancy, right? And you'll see guys nowadays, like they're running straight to hinges, or a lot of times you'll see guys, and I love it. It's a good move. It's a great move. And if you can do something that you know is going to be a checkmate off the back, you should do that. But I'll hear about guys talking about like, oh, why do I need to learn to use the irons? I'm just going to come up with the combi tool, or I'm just going to come up with the hydraulic, rabbit tool, and I'm just going to blow this thing right off the frame. And 100%. If we've got a way we can get through a door efficiently, we should do that. But it does not remove you from knowing how to use the irons. And the reason in this particular example is, okay, you're going to run over there, you're going to grab the rabbit tool, you're going to run up to the door. I'm telling you right now, on a residential inward swinging door, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to have that door forced before you get up there with that hydraulic tool. Just in the extra 10 seconds it took you to go to that back compartment. I'm going to come off the rig. I come off with my gloves on, my helmet on, my hood's bloused so I can pull it on if I need to, with my tool in the hand. And I'm going to come off, I'm going to spike that door, and that thing's going to go. So I really do think firefighting is foundational work. You can't pull line too much. You can't lead out too much. You can't force too many doors. You can't building raise the 24 too many times. You can't go up that 24 or that 35 to the roof and set the roof ladder too many times. You can't cut a basic hole too many times. You can't chop too much. Like having good chopping mechanics is what's going to make you a monster on the roof. If you have good chopping mechanics and you know how the head of that tool hits, and like simple foundational things, right? Like I don't want to send the whole bit of the axe through, right? I want to work with that top third to half. That way I can cut through that material. That's the stuff that's going to make you a monster. Once you're a monster, we can layer some things on top of that and we can make you a really technical monster.
I love it. I love the fact that, get your fundamentals. I like that too. What you're saying. Hey, the fundamentals rock solid. And then now you're a monster. And then, like you said, now we can make you a technical monster, which is great. It's, I don't know, probably about 10 episodes ago, I had this guy, Kenny Roman, on. He had a Mayday in a Spencer's Warehouse fire. So Spencer's Warehouse around here is a appliance store, so big box, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And he was honest, which I love. And because then it was a really good topic to train new guys that haven't been in that, or even senior guys. But in his department, their rule is you have to, which I disagree with, and it was a good point to make after hearing the call. I do exactly what you do. I have my gloves on. I am ready to go. I can mask up with my gloves on sub 10 seconds because I practice. And every single person that practice can also do it. It's not difficult. Just take sets and reps. So I tell guys, like, listen, force that door off air because you don't know it. It looks like it's going to be a normal, hey, it's an inward swinging residential door. I'll be in there in 10 seconds. Now it's got a freaking drop bar or additional locks high and low because of who knows why, right? But we didn't know. We've never been in this house before. So my traditional or my normal go-to works every time isn't working, right? If I'm clicked in, I'm blowing through air. So his story is real quick. They get to this commercial door. They use a rabbit tool on pretty much every commercial door. Well, and it's worked every time. This one, the gap was too tight. He could not sink it. So he went back to, and again, his words, he went back to traditional forcible entry, and he even says it, rusty, because he's so used to using that rabbit tool. He's clicked in. By the time they make entrance into this big box, he's at 2,500 pounds on his air bottle because it worked him, right?
Yeah.
And then guess what his Mayday was? He ran out of air, right? He lost the line, but if he wasn't, and again, Monday morning quarterback, hindsight being 2020, we all know this stuff, but a learning thing is if he wasn't on air and his basics for the forcible entry were top notch, and I don't know for a fact, but the likelihood of him having a Mayday would have been dramatically decreased compared to, because there's 8,000 different things that led to that, but the Mayday was because he ran out of air. He ran out of air because he blew too much at that door. And again, it was just it was his department's policy. He has to be clicked in, like you were saying, even if you have to be clicked in, if you are solid, like you said, you're a monster at force and entry on your basics, he would have said, shit, rabbit tool won't fit. No big deal. I got him to set irons, or I'm going to go bar to bar. Me and my partner are going to work it, and we'll defeat this door. And instead of 2,500 pounds going in, maybe I'm at 4,000. Maybe I blew through 500 because it was an ass kicker or whatever the case might be. But we had just taught forcible entry this weekend, and I had purposely, and I was laughing, I soaked all the wood. And the guys were like, what are you soaking it for? I'm like, so it bends and doesn't break. It makes it
Yeah.
hard, right? And they had these kids, which was great, kids, students. Hard time not saying that. So these students going through, and all of them were, I would say 90% of them had really good basic forcible entry techniques with a set of irons. And it's like, okay, but it forced them, their plan A did not work. And I knew it wasn't going to work. So I'm like, let's go to plan B, then C, because I harp on, especially forcible entry. I'm going to have 4 plans with me right now, right? A, B, C, D. E might be back at the truck, but I definitely have 4. But then making them work through all their plans, right, that we're coaching them through. And hey, you get to D and the door's still not forced, no big deal. We could hop back to A or B. And because we've caused all this damage, now it's going to work. So it's like trying to instill, hey, just go through your modalities and it will eventually work. Like we will crush and break and bend and manipulate. The door will fail. It might take a while, right? Or we might have to switch up. We might have to attack the hinges, right? We might have to go high to low. Like I was even teaching them, like we would get to a point where we had such a sizable gap where the lock is, but because that wood has just bent and not broken, the gap's so large that they don't have any leverage to use their Halligan to be able to force. So it's like, hey, can you stick your New York hook in there at a different angle, right? And we blocked them in. No, shit, the wall's in the way. And I would ask them, what are you going to do? Right? And they look at me and I'm like, no, what are you going to do? Right?
Brace off that
And then
axe.
when they start drawing the blank, I start telling them, I'm like, look, your gap is so large at the lock. Look at the top and the bottom of your doors. Look how big that gap is. It's tiny, right? Because that gap's so big there. So it's going down to the bottom. I said, who says just because we teach you, hey, start 6 inches above or below the lock and work, and it usually works. Now we have an area where it's not a sizable gap. Let me start back at the top and continue to break all the way down. And that's going to shift the weight of that door. And then, hey, it might force then. If it doesn't, guess what? I'm going to go to the bottom and work up. That doesn't work. I'm going to implement another tool. But it's like just going through all those things over and over again to be successful. It's just, I like to make guys work through the mental side of the reps, and really what I'm looking for is for them not to go, oh, boss, it's not working. Well, I know it's not working. And that's what I'll tell them. What do you got to do? And they look at me and like, well, you're the instructor. Be like, I'm not forcing the door, so like trying to force them to think through it, because like we are trying to build, we always say this, forward thinking firefighters, so it's like, hey, it's new guys have blinders, right? Our job is to start taking those blinders off more and more to the point where like, even in a basic operation, like force and entry, I'm like, hey man, give me a door report. And a lot of guys are like, what the fuck's a door report? I'm like, and I do this on purpose because it makes them look at the building. I'm like, I want to know the building construction. I want to know what the door is made of. I want to know what side of the door the hinges are on. And I want to know what direction it swings. And then I explain the importance of all this. But really, reality is it's making them look. Because if not, they're laser focused on the door. I'll ask them, where the fuck's the fire? And they're like, right? You don't know because, yeah, because you want to get that door. It's just like, so I don't know how you feel about that, but that's like just trying to open up that scope for firemen, especially now, because, especially when you first get on the job, it's like, it is moth to the flames every single time. And it's hard to break that mindset until someone kind of maybe explains the why. Like, hey, I'm not just telling you, don't focus on the door. I'm telling you what else to look at and why you should look at that and why it's important, because it's going to help you, effectively do your job.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Like another one of the things that I was told when I was a rookie, and it's awesome because we have a lot of these like solid traditions. I would say that for the most part, we're like the modern thing to do is like, are you an SOP driven department, or there's a bunch of different ways to say it, right? And we get this question all the time, but like I would say we are an SOP driven department. But what I was told when I started as a rookie is they're like, listen, you got to get good quick, and you're going to have to get fluid quick. You're going to have to figure out where you fit in at every scene as we arrive. And So for us, what that means is I think every new guy is always going to have like moth in the flame, right? Like
Yeah.
we're coming off, and a lot of times you're gonna have to be like, "Hey, kid, pull the line." And be like, "What?" I'd be like, "Fire, pull the line, let's
Yeah.
go." But the funny thing is, like, if you came to one of our fires and just, "Hey, engine such and such on scene, 2-story frame, smoke and fire showing from 2. We're gonna be out stretching a line, engine such and such facing north." That is probably the last bit of in town radio traffic you're gonna hear. Switch to red, and what you're going to see are nozzles flying off the rigs, ladders getting set. I guess I could back like, well, we'll get to the SOP thing in a minute, but long story short, what you're going to see is a lot of the work just starting to happen. And as our companies are arriving, whatever order they arrive in, because we're going to their first or they're coming to ours, the work is just getting set and people are just clicking in, and there's not a lot of radio traffic. In most cases, there's almost none, because everybody is so used to doing the job with 4, 5, 6 working firemen. One, maybe two. Two lieutenants is a great day. A lot of times it's one lieutenant and one captain. So you got your guy inside running the whole building. And very much so where I work, like if you're the lieutenant, if there are two of you and there's the senior lieutenant, whoever's in there, be it the lieutenant or the senior lieutenant, he's in charge. He's in charge of all the guys from out of town. He's in charge of everything going on in that building. He's in charge of all the tactics being implemented. The captain is setting the overall strategy. And as you know, that overall strategy is what? Extension, life safety, extension, putting the fire out. So for the most part, unless some crazy thing is going on strategically, there's really not a lot of communication going on from the captain down to the lieutenant. The lieutenant's just running that building, but you're not going to hear a lot of fire reports. And most of the time, a lot of us have opted to go back to quote unquote the old way, where like once the fire is struck, it's the kid on the nozzle doing that. Two guys jump in, and all of a sudden the truck work starts, because truck work, even for a department like ours that has, we don't have the truck. The truck's arriving with one guy, and unless we're setting that truck up because we're burning off a roof, or we're burning a building down, or we're going to start doing some hardcore truck work, like the main may or may not get thrown. But the truck is coming in. The truck is always taking the front of the building. But the truck work, the work that is normally assigned to truck, is getting done, and it's getting done by anybody who can slot in and do that. And so like these things are happening. I'm doing my search. All of this is going on. A lot of times I will opt to swing by that front door and stick my head out, or stick my head out a window and go, "Hey, Cap, fire's knocked. We're finishing up a primary. It's negative so far on the fire floor. I'm waiting for a report from the floor above. We're starting an overhaul. I don't need a second line. We can keep that at the side door." And that's going to be, that won't happen over the radio, but that's going to be the most radio traffic you're going to hear. It's just dudes going in and doing the job the old way. And a lot of it is because everybody is so fluid with what they're told you. And they tell you when you come on the job where I work, you cannot be a fireman where I work who is waiting for orders. You have to very quickly understand these are the things that are expected to happen, and they need to start happening. And so if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you show up and 1 and 2 are being done, and 4, you do 3 and 5, or whatever it is. And you just, oh, hey, I was gonna grab 3, but there's a guy doing 3. Well, I guess I'm doing number 5 now. And we just kind of all, it's almost like jazz musicians, and it's because we go to jobs together. But then the other thing, and this is huge, is the foundational work of firefighting is the work that we're very passionate about. And that's what you'll get chewed out about. Like, you'll get chewed out if you have a shitty lay, or if you have a shitty lay and you can't explain why it was a shitty lay, or you'll get chewed out if you do something silly like nose to nose on an engine. That's a big deal where I work. You'll get chewed out if you show up on scene, hey, on scene at 123 Main Street, smoke and fire showing, 2-story residential. Well, hey, you're out pulling a line. You didn't give a rig direction. And that's a major thing, right? Because a lot of times these guys end up kind of being like jazz musicians, and everybody's kind of jumping in and riffing off of each other. And if I don't give you like, hey, this is the music we're playing and this signature and this key, well, no, now we're going to have a train wreck, right? So I got to give you the basics. And that's kind of the SOP, and that's how we run. Just the firemen who have had a hard time working in my department for a long time are the guys who are like, I need you to tell me to pull the cross layer. I need you to tell me to go to the back door. I need you to tell me to search above the fire, right? Like, that's just something that the captain is expecting you. You see a line in the door, the backup line's going to the side. Hey, Cap, I'm looping to the back. I'm going to the floor above. And that's really more so everybody knows what's going on. He kind of already expects it. There's been a number of times I've come by my captain shooting to that back door as a second lieutenant, going to the floor above to do search. And then I came out and I was like, oh, hey, Cap, he's like, I know what you were doing. I knew exactly what you were doing as soon as I saw the pace you were taking down the gangway. I knew you had a ladder, you were going to throw and search. So, that's where I would say maybe it is a little different.
And I actually agree with how you guys run it. And I wish that my region ran like you did, because we're polar opposite. We talk too much again, my personal opinion, we talk in our area too much on the radio. Some areas east of us talk even more, which is like mind boggling to me. And I will never forget, like my first good job on probation was maybe my second or third shift, first rotation, right? And I'll never forget it because no one, and it's funny, I tell this story and it's something that we don't do a very good job on. I was a guy from another region that had 11 years on the job. So I didn't know how our region ran. I just assumed I've only been a fireman in one area, that everybody ran the same way. It just, in my brain, it's just, hey, you're a fireman, that's just how we do. So we literally arrive on, it's like in between dues. So it's twos and zeros due, basically. So engine 2, ladder 2, they arrive like 10 seconds before us, to the point where we're watching them stretch, right? So they're stretching. It's a single level apartment complex, bunch of attached units, right? Blowing out the first one. I see 2 stretching, ladder 2's going right to the roof to go ahead and cut them a hole. These are probably like 1,000 square foot apartments, small, maybe even smaller, maybe 800 square feet. Then I hear the next in engine, which is our sister engine, 1, they get assigned exposures. So immediately I already know what we're doing. We're going to go in the fire room. We're going to back them up, right? So as soon as I hear our sister engine get assigned, we still had the packs in the cab. They're not anymore, unfortunately, but I open the door. I'm already packed up and I go to leave, right? And I'll never forget, my senior fireman grabs the back of my pack and like kind of gives me a little tug. And I'm like, I turn around, I'm like, what? Like I was a little pissed off. I'm like, what? He goes, what are you doing? I was like, I'm going to go back up too, right? He goes, you can't do that. I'm like, why not? He goes, that's freelance. And I'm like, no, it's not. I just told you where I'm going. Like in my brain, like, because that's the next assignment. We were the next arriving engine. So I'm like, that's what we're going to do. And he goes, you can't do that. That's freelancing. And I'm like, what? 30 seconds later, they get on the radio and tell us to do exactly that, right?
Yeah,
So I
it's
pull
what
the
needs
line.
done.
Yeah, the fire goes great. I have a move up officer that day. So the next shift, my officer's back. And so I'm like, hey, Cap, like, we had a job last shift. He's, oh, yeah, I heard it went great. Good job. Everything else. I'm like, can I talk to you real quick? He's like, yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm like, can I talk to you in the office? He's like, oh, shit, So we go in his office, close the door. And in my brain, the only thing that made sense, and I was wrong, was he was a move up officer. So they didn't trust him. So they had to wait till we got assigned. So in my brain, that made sense. Because again, I don't know how our system works. He starts laughing. He goes, nah, man. He's like, let me break it down to you. So we have an order. We're an IC driven system where you do not do anything until that first in officer gives you that assignment, or the battalion chief takes it over and gives you that assignment, because they want to march it out for accountability. And I understand the accountability side, but again, my opinion, it's very micromanaging-ish, where to the point where, like, when I was coming up into the system to test to be a suppression officer, at that point, part of the testing was, hey, I'm signing my ladder company. So initially I'm like, hey, we're going to burn this structure down. It's a strip mall. It's not going good. And they purposely would tweak like different calls. One would go defensive. The other one would have multiple exposures. They want to put you through the gambit. This one, I already see it's going to be going defensive. There's no life safety involved in all, right? The property is garbage. There's no reason at this point, and it's going sideways. So I'm already predicting this. So I tell my ladder company, hey, set up defensively, right? Put your main up, stand by. Basically like, hey, get your crew ready. We're probably going to be pulling guys out. We're going to put the main in service. They digged on me because they're like, well, where? I'm like, what do you mean where? He goes, what corner of the building? I'm like,
Yeah.
where
the fire is.
Right. Also, I'm like, where the ladder officer wants to put it, because that's his piece of equipment. And they're like, no, you're running it. You tell them the southeast corner. I'm like, well, I don't know if the southeast corner at that point is the best spot for him. He's a ladder officer. I trust his judgment. And they're like, no, so it's like that kind of mentality. And again, just because I don't agree with it doesn't make it wrong. My personal opinion, it's not very efficient. And what scares me, and I'm very vocal about this, and we do a good job because of our staffing, because of our automatic aid. We have very few maydays. Thank God. Knock on wood. Thank God we don't have a lot of maydays. We don't have a lot of line of duties, which is all good things. But it's chopped up to our accountability. I feel the opposite, where I say, hey, if I do have to transmit a mayday, how do I get on the freaking radio? Because this guy's given a paragraph for an assignment. This guy's given a paragraph for an on-scene report. This guy just staged. This guy just staged. He hasn't responded to him yet, so he went back on the radio. Hey, engine one staged on the plug east because he wants to go to work, right? And it's just so everyone's talking. I'm like, if I run into an issue, how do I get priority on the radio? It's hard. Unlike a system where you are right now and what I came with, where, hey, we know what needs to be done on 95% of our bread and butter fires. And then guess what? If it's at 5% out there, I have this little thing right here and I can talk on the radio and say something different, But for some reason, that's a hard push for us. And when I talk to guys that run successfully in systems like you, I like to kind of point that out because, like, I see the expression on your face. You're like, why the hell do you guys do that? And it's kind of the same thing. But I mean, so how do you feel about basically the differences between your system and my system? Because again, I would prefer yours, and I'm curious on how you feel about ours. Do you like yours, or would you prefer that more talking and more accountability, if you want to put it that way?
Well, so the first thing I would say is talking does not equal accountability. You know, just because there are radio messages being sent, and look, like we know this from the rescue surveys and Project Mayday and all of those things, right? Like just because you send a thing out doesn't mean anybody hears it. So the mere act of like you don't do anything until I tell you to do something doesn't mean that you're going to go do what I told you to do. Doesn't mean you're going to hear what I told you to do. There's any number of things. We know this, like when you go through officer school, they tell you like you got to be really specific about your message and your messaging and making sure that like I tell you to do something and then you read it back to me so we know that it's confirmed in both directions. I love my system and I love the way we work because look, again, going back to just again, and I'll beat this horse until it's dead and then I'll drag it to water and try to make it drink. Firefighting is foundation. It's foundational work. It's a trade craft, right? Like you don't want to look at a carpenter who's like, hey, we're putting in walls today, and the guy knows like I need a hammer, this and that. I need to look at the plans, and I need to start running walls. So I would say it's the same thing, right? Like what needs to happen on the scene of just about every fire, unless something's absolutely insane going on, right? We need fire attack, we need truck work, we need search, we need extinguishment, we need overhaul. And it's if you want to get real tricky, we could start talking about making sure that we have egress ladders and secondary egress for our roof team and things like that. But for a fire where it's not presenting any abnormal workflows, it's not doing anything really, really weird. And look, let's take a 2-story frame with 3 people that need to be pulled out of 2. That shouldn't be a big deal.
Right.
And for anybody listening, I'm not saying that that's not a big deal, right? Like our job is to go up and get those 3 people. And if they can get themselves down the ladder, then our job is to go up and make sure they don't fall off that ladder. And if we got to VES that room and go in and make those grabs and then do a ladder rescue with an unconscious victim, that's our job too. But that's basic firefighting. I shouldn't need to tell you, hey, we need to go do these things, right? Like if there's fire, if there's smoke pushing out of the building and we know there's a fire in there, then I know I need to pull the line, get inside, locate the seat of the fire, search for victims, extinguish the fire, and overhaul it. I know that I have to do all of those things. And I think it's interesting that there's this notion that somebody's got to say, like, how far do you want to take that, right? Like, okay, Freeman, go ahead and pull the blue forward cross lay. Like, do I need it to be the blue forward cross lay, or can I just pull the lay? Or like, what happens when, the captain is busy looking at the 2 rescues that need to be made, and for whatever reason doesn't catch that we need to add an extra 50 because there's a little bit more setback, or we're going to go into the back door because it's going to be a better way to attack the fire. Well, I would hope that you have a solid crew that knows, like you're looking as we're coming up and I'm going, look, I need the extra 50. Where I work, when we need the extra 50 or an extra 100 or whatever it is, we're going to do something that's not just the basic crosslay coming off the rig. I've never had to ask, even as the officer. I'm spinning that line and throwing it on my shoulder, and as I'm turning around to grab my loop, my engineer's running up with the roll going, hey, Lou, I'm going to throw this 50 on for you. I think you need it. Now look at him and be 100%, get it on that first butt. So, and then there's also the time component, right? Like if I need these 5 things to happen concurrently with low manpower, I don't need to, engine 1 do this, engine 2 do that, engine 3 come in this way and do that. Like our basic SOP for our basic fire is first due engine pulls past. And first due engine is the first engine that arrives, right? Like you can't say like, oh, this is a District 1 fire, engine 1's got to be the engine that's first due. It should be first due, but look, I love beating people to their fires too, So like if we come in, I'm pulling past, that we're going to give a size up with direction. We leave the front of the building for the truck every time. Even though the truck's coming with 1, maybe 2 people on it, that truck is getting the front. The truck deserves the front. Truck work is important. And that's where that truck goes. That truck it's an exposure tool. It's a ventilation tool. It's a rescue tool. So we're leaving the front. And then that next due engine, that second due engine is backing down to the truck or the engine. It depends on the truck will be between that backing down engine and that other engine. But if we're offset towards the fire or away from the fire building, we might be backing down tailboard to tailboard so the truck can be fed in between. Or if we're sandwiched in line, the truck always takes the crown of the road. Like that's another one of those things. Like we don't have to tell anybody to do that. They just do it. So that second due engine is backing down, and they're backing down to lead out to a hydrant. And all of these things are happening concurrently with nobody telling them what to do. And I just think you save so much time. And again, it's sort of like it's the professional fireman's take, right? Like we know that these things need to happen. I know I need to slot into these positions. And it's really not hard to look around and see like, okay, I'm second due engine. My engineer drops down. I start running that 5-inch over to we call it a street hydrant. It's a big Y. I start running that 5-inch over and connecting it. And then he starts peeling away, and I'm standing there with my bar and my hook, and I look and I see a line in the front door. I know they need a backup line, and they need it in through the other door. Like my captain doesn't need to tell me to do that. He's got other things he's worrying about. Maybe somebody is being pulled out of a window. If there's somebody hanging out of a window, my captain damn well better not have to tell me, hey, go throw that 24 and get it done. Or, hey, you got to walk up and the 24 is not going to make it. Make sure you get the 28. So, I love our system working the way it does. And again, I think it has a number of perks. I think one of those perks is that it becomes incumbent on the firemen to become tradesmen. And I know I'm probably starting to sound like a broken record to anybody who's going to listen to this, but I keep going over and over and over that again. But I really truly believe being brilliant at the basics is what the citizens not only expect from us, but whatever it is that you did when you raised your hand, you made a promise. You made that promise to yourself. Some people make that promise to God. Some people make that promise to the citizens. But ultimately, what you did is you said, I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do. And I think one of the things that you're supposed to do as a fireman is become a functioning tradesman. You're supposed to be a journeyman. And a journeyman shouldn't need to be told at every little step along the way what it is that he needs to do. And I think that's a big part of working in like an SOP driven system, if you're going to call it that, or just, I think it's part of just being a fireman and firemanship. If we're going in and we're doing truck work, I shouldn't have to tell you after I've taught you how to do it. I shouldn't have to, dog just walked up. I shouldn't have to tell you after I've taught you how to do it and mentored you how to do it. Basic things like how to trim out a window, like when you come to fires in my town, you go to the fire building, abandoned or not abandoned. Even if it's an abandoned building and it doesn't end up getting boarded up or they're going to tear it down or whatever, you're not going to see big panes of glass hanging out. If you go inside, you're not going to see the trim around the windows. The header is going to be gone. If we've got king studs that were involved on the outside framing of that, all the rookies know after 1 or 2 fires, they know that there's no jagged glass. The gasket comes out of the window pane. Both windows come down. The cross brace of the window comes down. The trim around it, the header and king studs around it come down because, just simple things like knowing that you got to take the sill plate out so you can make sure that there's no fire running down in that wall. Well, if I don't have to tell you that, then why do I have to tell you that the truck work needs done? And if I don't have to tell you that the truck work needs done, then do I really have to tell you that first line needs to come off the building? Unless there's a reason to tell you, hey, I see you pulling that line to the front door. I caught a 360 and got a peek at that back seaside door. The side door is going to be the move. When you hear radio traffic where I work, it's usually just little radio traffic like that, or you'll just hear the captain yell across, hey, bring that to the side door. It's going to be an easier push.
Dude, I love it. So my question for you is, oh, well, I already know the answer. You guys are extremely aggressive because you have to be. And again, aggressiveness, and just to clarify this, in my world is not a negative word. It is, if we are some guys look at being aggressive as reckless. It's not. So being aggressive is doing what you're supposed to be doing, like you're saying, immediately, fast, effective, efficiently, and then it deems everything safe if we're aggressive in the forefront. When we get into trouble, and I think when guys look at a negative light when we say aggressive is when we try to be uberly aggressive late in the call, like 30-minute burn time, right? When we know physically the structure's failing, if it's a lightweight construction, something like that, that's when we'll kind of get hemmed up. But if we're uberly aggressive right from the get-go, we deem everything safely by, like you said, putting the fire out, grabbing the people out of the building, whatever it is. We're doing what makes things work. But you said the truck deserves the front of the building. I love that. But with your staff, and what is your truck culture like? You already said you guys are very aggressive on the engine side. How does that kind of correlate to your truck side?
And I've always kind of loved truck work, and I keep going into these places where I end up being an engine guy. And the funny thing is, I guess it depends on what you consider truck work, right? Like, I think and this just comes from where I work, right? I think there's work that traditionally gets assigned to the engine and work that traditionally gets assigned to the truck. I have ended up standing on a roof with a saw in my hand as an engine guy a number of times. I've ended up dragging people down hallways a number of times as an engine guy. Like, if you ask me, like, oh, hey, what are you? Are you an engine guy or a truck guy? I'd be like, I'm a fireman. You know, I'm an engine guy because I'm going to arrive 9 times out of 10, even when I go out of town, to an engine. But, to answer your actual question, so like overhaul, right? Truck work, search and rescue, truck work, throwing ladders, truck work, like,
Ventilation, truck
yeah,
work.
ventilation, truck work. So vent is probably the thing where the hardcore truckies are going to be like, they don't do truck work, because where I work, we got a lot of messed up roofs, 7 guys, 3 coming off. They're in the front yard right off the bat. We got 4 dudes. Those 4 dudes, it's going to be real hard to send one of those 4 dudes to the roof. And a whole bunch of people probably immediately just started to freak out at even that. Like, oh, what do you mean sending one dude to the roof? It's like, listen, we'll send one dude to do things sometimes, and he'll link up with another guy in a few minutes or a few seconds, or we'll send one guy together with somebody to go do something. And I don't think that that's a problem. I really don't. And I want to get a crew, a company of people so they can work together going, but I know we're not the only people to send a guy to do a thing. So from a truck work perspective, our ventilation is very, very frequently horizontal instead of vertical. And the reason it's horizontal instead of vertical is because we are throwing aggressive manpower at the task of putting the fire out and searching. So search is a normal part of, like, just life for us. Like, you won't hear a lot of guys necessarily call for a primary because the primary is being done. So, like, as I come off the rig as a lieutenant, if I have a rider for the day, like I've got an actual backstep fireman, I'm going to the door with my irons, I'm popping the door, and then I'm immediately searching through the building for the seat of the fire. So far, I mean, right there, a lot of times you'll say, like, oh, you're going to go search for the seat of the fire to direct the engine company, and that's truck work. As I'm coming back to my guy, and you'll notice I haven't said anything about telling him what line to pull, helping him with the stretch, any of that, because he's expected to be able to do that himself. He's expected to be able to get that cross lay. Him and the engineer are expected to be able to get that cross lay laid out, no problem, to the front door with a butt at the front door and the nozzle, or the side door or the back door, while I'm finding the seat of the fire. As I'm coming back off that seat of the fire, I am 100% carrying out reasonable primaries. I'm searching the hall, and just off that hall, or if I'm coming down from the second floor, I'm checking that first floor for primary and doing victim removal, because I don't want my pipeman to bump into a victim. It's not good for the victim. It's not good for the pipeman. We don't want to rescue people by accident. So that's, I would say, some guys would consider that truck work. And then this is another big one, right? Like, so the pipeman goes down, hey, it's on the first floor, hallway's on the right, it's going to be 2 doors down on your left, you're going to see it. I'll be down there in just a second. I'm hitting the floor above now. I'm swinging up, and the thing is this is what is just expected of senior men here being men with more than 5 years on. Certainly the senior man, who is, in our department, there's senior men and then the senior man. The senior man, you don't have to tell the senior man anything. You learned your job from the senior man. The senior man is the one that tells you when you're fucking up. He's the one who, like, oh, there's a squabble going on in the firehouse. Well, we'll get the senior man involved. Lou, go have a seat in the office. Make sure the chiefs don't cross the floor. The senior man's going to work this out with the men. But
Yeah.
senior men with more than 5 years on, like, they don't need to be told this either. So you see that line in the building and you know that there's a guy working the door, you're going to either cut to that room with the expectation of doing extension and overhaul extension search and overhaul, or if you're starting to cut into that room and you know that extension and overhaul is already being done, you're coming to the floor above or the most endangered area of the fire to do primary with probably the officer who was doing all of that. So, but the one place where I would say, and it's near and dear to my heart because I absolutely love tearing shit up with a chainsaw. It's just one of the coolest jobs in the fire service, I think. We just don't get to make a lot of roofs. Now we'll throw the main, we'll throw ladders, we will do that, but we just don't have the manpower to get one or two guys, and heaven forbid. I mean, shit, if you send a 4-man company to the roof where I work, that's the department.
Yeah.
So, and we also believe that ventilation is important. So we just accomplish it a lot horizontally. And then this is, man, we'll have this argument all the time, and guys are like, oh, you're taking windows and you're opening up flow paths, and it's like, yeah, man, but we're tradesmen. I understand what I'm doing. If I'm going to take an outside window because I got a nozzle crew 12 feet away at the hallway, like, I know that I'm drawing that out this exterior window if the window hasn't already gone. If I've got a bunch of smoke pushing and it looks nasty and angry, and I'm thinking we're starting to get into like a violent fire dynamic event, yeah, I'm gonna ventilate picture windows. I'm gonna try to get back to where I think the seat of the fire is before I do that. That way, if we have something, we have it as close to the seat of the fire as possible. But I'm coordinating that with my interior attack guys who are hyper aggressive anyway. They're gonna know, hey, if we take this and we had a little bit of push, we might have some good rollover in the hallway. But again, the officer's probably already been down that hallway and he's probably coming back and saying, hey, I got to do a more in-depth search here. Take this window. You guys need to be ready for a little bit of rollover. Does that kind of answer your question, or did I get
No,
off
it
in the
does.
weeds?
No, 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 no. Well, I mean, you did, but you got off in good fireman weeds, which I love. It's reminding me a lot of during this last conference I was just at over the weekend. So the Old South boys do a presentation called Squad by Default. And that's exactly what you're explaining. It's basically like you guys are all squad companies because you're doing it all. You're stretching lines, you're searching off of hand lines, you're ventilating. Because of your lack of staffing, you have to be able to get the job done. So it's almost like you guys are all squad dudes because you have to be proficient at all the fundamentals of firefighting, which is ventilation, either way, crew placements. And I love the fact of what you said because it's an argument in my region right now when we start talking about searching for victims. I always tell guys, if you find a victim while you're on the line, right, that's exactly what you did. You found them. You didn't search for them. It was by accident because you ran into them. Poor tactics for search. You should never, again, my opinion, be searching on a hose line. You need a hose line in service and you have to be searching off. And I always tell guys, I'm like, if you're on a hose line and you're progressing through, or if you're trying to search off a wall, I have never yet, right? Never found a victim hanging on a wall. That's not where
Oh
they are.
yeah, they don't glue themselves to the wall.
Yeah, right. They're by, like we all know, they're by, and I tell guys that people are creatures of habits, including us, and we all know this. So, like Doug dudes, I'm like, how do you get in your house every day? It's probably the same way, 99.9% of
Yeah,
the day. The public is the same way. If they, in our region, if they have an attached garage, that is their front door. They use their
100%,
garage door for everybody else.
100%.
Their front door is for Amazon or strangers. So
Yeah,
where should I focus my efforts? Outside of the bedrooms, because of the firefighter rescue survey, we did our own. So firefighter rescue survey says 45% of victims, the last 4,000 victims rescued, were found in bedrooms. We did our own study here in the Phoenix region, and we are 55%. So if I want to focus my energy on a search, it's primarily going to be the bedrooms first, right? And then kind of move off of that. But again, how am I supposed to do that on a hand line? That means I have to go through the front door. I have to find the hallway. I have to push my way back to whatever conditions I'm facing. And then, dad outside told me, hey, my kid's in that back bedroom. Which one's a back bedroom? Because now I'm disoriented because I'm interior compared to, hey, I'll just take that window, right? And guys are like, exactly what you said. Well, bro, you're creating a flow path, but yeah, it's okay. I'm going to close that interior door and I put the house back to exactly how it was prior to breaking that window. So again, like you said, because I know my fundamentals, I can be effective, safe, but more importantly, I'm doing an aggressive primary search in my highest probability area, I know I just butchered that up, but the highest chance of finding someone, that's where I'm gonna dictate my most amount of energy, or tactically with the most amount of guys, whatever the case might be. But it's almost like you guys are all fucking squad dudes because you have to do everything, which I love, you know. But again, I agree, and that's why I was curious about your truck culture. I really wanted you to get to the vertical ventilation, if you guys
Yeah.
did it or not. And I like the fact that it's not that you don't do it because, hey, we don't think it's safe or we don't believe in the function. It is because most of the time, manpower wise, we just physically can't. We don't have enough guys
Oh
because we
yeah.
have to focus on the fire and the victims. And shit, if we have a couple extra dudes, yes, we're going to cut a hole, right?
Well,
Because we know it's beneficial. But in yours, like what we're saying in our system, right? It might not be feasible because of manpower, which is insane.
yeah.
Which is, but it's, hey, how are we going to prioritize our dudes running that call? Where do I want to put them? Do I want to waste two guys on the roof when I have nobody interior? Hell no, of course not.
Well,
I'm going to burn the freaking house down then.
well, yeah. I mean, and there's the thing, right? Like sending dudes to the roof is never a waste. It's never a waste. Look, and I should say, like I got a lot of strong opinions, and it's for me. This is how I do it. This is how I
Mhm.
see it. This is how I teach it. This is what I've seen work. If you do something else or you disagree, that's okay. I can love you. You can love me. We could probably have a beer together. And I think if we could get a little bit more of that in the fire service would be better, right? Like if we could get to a place where, like, I can have a strong opinion, and you can understand that, like it's kind of almost like what I said a few minutes ago about the senior man, right? Like the senior man is there to kind of be the arbiter of making sure strong opinions don't get out of line too much. And it's not like you can't have a strong opinion, but if the American Fire Service could get to a place where it's like, hey, I can have a strong opinion, and I could be like, no, listen, you are absolutely wrong, uh, in my way of thinking, and I'm not going to meet you on this, but I understand what you're saying, and I realize that for you and your workflow and your department and what you got going on, that's going to be the answer for you. And I don't like it, and I don't agree with it, and I'm not going to do it, but it doesn't make you a shitty fireman. I think things would be a lot better, right? If we could do a little bit more love thy brother. Like I have a personal code of like conduct or ethics, and there's a couple points to it. I don't talk about it a lot, but a couple of them are do what you love what you do. And then the next three are honor the elders, teach the young, look for the log in your own eye. And that last one is really it's a Bible verse. And I'm not a religious person, but like that last one is really, you know, do what you love what you do, honor the elders, teach the young, look for the log in your own eye. And it's like a personal mantra to mine when I start to like get a little frictious with somebody and I'm like, hey, this is what it is and there's no room for that. I can disagree with you, but we can still be fine,
Yeah.
because inevitably what that last statement of mine means is I have way more work that I need to be looking at me to do before I even think about looking at what it is I think you need to do. I need to clean my room before I even think about talking about anything you got going on. There's so much work. There's so much extra training I need to do. There's so much more I need to know. There's so much more I need to study. There's so many more good firemen I need to listen to and just shut the fuck up and listen to what they have to say for a minute before I start trying to jam something down their throat or call them stupid or say they don't know what they need to do. I need to at least hear you out. And before I even start to critique you, I need to make sure that my house is in order. But all of that said, as far as like the vertical vent, yeah, like I don't think it's ever a waste to send somebody to the roof. We just don't have the ability to send somebody to the roof. And some of our roofs are like pre-vented, if you know what I mean, And but one of the things that my captain told me, because I really do like vertical ventilation, and it kind of breaks my heart that I don't get to do it nearly as much as I want. Like I might cut a roof a year. In my town, I might cut a roof a year. When we go out of town, there's a lot of times where like the boys that go out of town with me on my rig, Engine 36 is showing up and it's like they're just because of who we are and how we're known, they're going to give us one of two jobs. We're going to be a lot of times we're going to go and be primary fire attack, even when we're coming in from out of town, or they're going to give us search on the fire floor or floor above, just because just they know that these boys are going to get it done. A lot of times I'm pulling up and I'm like, just send me to the roof, man. Let me just go get a little bit of this pie that I don't get to play with too much. But when I came on shift, I like to do a lot of trainings involved with vertical ventilation, and my captain noticed that. He's like, hey, if we get one of these fires where we're running heavy on manpower, And I think we need to vent the roof. And, a lot of times I don't think we need to because we get in there and we do horizontal ventilation and we're getting real aggressive with fire tech. He goes, well, I'm going to send you and you can pick your guy. So I just wish we did more of it. But we do get after what I think would be truck work. Like one of the things that'll get you a solid boot right in your ass is if you think that like you're going to have 3 guys on the line with you or 2 guys on the line with you, and then the pipeman's going to go in and make the hit, and then you're just going to sit behind him and be like, oh, all right, keep washing the room down. Like where I work, when the guy's coming in there and he's making that initial hit, as soon as the room is knocked down to the point where we can get another guy in that room, all you see are Halligans, pickhead axes, and hooks flying down to studs every time, no questions asked. And if, heaven forbid, the fire attack officer has to come in there and say like, hey boys, let's get these windows trimmed. Let's get this ceiling opened up.
Drop
Let's
the
get this
lid,
wall
yeah.
down to stuff. Yeah. Like heaven forbid somebody had to come in and say that when I was on the line, all hell is going to break loose at the bumper afterwards. Right. Like that's just one of those things where it's like, listen, we are opening up. You need to be opening up. It's the same thing with search. Like that search needs to happen. We get that good fire hit. The search, if the search isn't already done, we know we got to do it. Get a guy off that line right now. You had 3 guys. You got the nozzleman, you got a guy opening up, and you had a 3rd guy who's going to open up. If it's a small enough room, let the one guy open up. The nozzleman can keep him safe. Get the other guy searching. And it's stuff like that. Checking the back utilities, checking the basement, things like that. We're big on those things.
I love everything you said, but I really want to drive home one of the points you made. And you didn't say the exact words, but I've said this a million times, especially over the last couple of weeks. I wish total in the American Fire Service, we can get to a point where exactly what you said, you and I, all right, so Steve and Kev, right, we can disagree wholeheartedly on something, but then we're still friends. It's like, hey, bro, like I disagree with your tactic or your mindset on that, and vice versa. You're like, bro, Steve, in my eyes, you're wrong. But then at the end of the day, we're still friends. It doesn't matter that we disagree on the tactic. It's the fact that there's still firemanship. We're still trying to make each other better. We're just trying to share knowledge. And if it's not accepted, it's not accepted. Or if it doesn't work in the area I work compared to you because of either culture, building construction, environment, whatever it is, that's okay. But don't fucking shit on the guy because he disagrees with you. That's what drives me crazy.
Oh, so look, like I can here, and maybe this will be good because we were kind of talking about doing more with less. We don't forward lay from hydrants to the scene.
Yeah,
This is like a perfect example. We do not. I have never once dropped a guy at a hydrant.
there you go.
We got 7 dudes on duty.
Yeah.
And so I'll get in these arguments with guys where they're like, oh, you got to drop a guy at the hydrant. Or they'll be like, listen, you got to, and then this becomes the next argument. They'll be like, well, come on, man, you're wasting time. You're doing this, you're doing that. You don't have a positive water supply. You can't fight a fire like that. How long does it take to have, okay, dude, you and your engineer on the rig. Keith, how long is it going to take you to jump off the back, grab that 5-inch and wrap it around the hydrant? No joke. It's better now. It's probably down to 40%. When I started, 50 to 60% of the hydrants didn't have water in them.
Oh.
So, I'd be in a class, they'd be talking about forward lay, and everybody's like, oh, there's no such thing as a reverse lay, right? Like in the modern fire service, people are like, if you're reverse laying, you're wrong. And I'd be like, hey, we exclusively reverse lay. And they'd be like, oh, and then, that whole thing washes over you. You're an idiot. You don't know what you're doing. You're not serving the citizens well. And then you go, well, just so you know, 60% of our hydrants or 40% of our hydrants literally don't have water in them. And I've had multiple days where I've been on fires where we've had to drop 1,000 feet of 5-inch to find a good hydrant. So no, we're not going to forward lay. Yes, we are going to reverse lay exclusively because we fight fires on tank water. We fight fires. We begin firefights on tank water. Here's another one. And I would reverse my opinion. If you told me today 100% of the hydrants in my district would be 40 PSI 5-inch steamers, I'd be like, yeah, let's start hooking that. Let's start hooking that plug. We got old school eddies that are 4-inch. We have 4, 4.5, and 5-inch steamers in my town. Yeah. And so, you're asking the engineers to know a lot. And like, that's another thing, right? Like becoming a tradesman. Like when you take an engineer position, if the captain catches you walking up to a plug with 2 different adapters, he's going to talk to you. He wants you to know like, oh, that's an eddy. That's a 4. That's an older eddy. That's a 4.5. But Like here's another one that happens all the time is I hear this in the modern fire service. I'll hear guys talk about if you walk past visible fire, you're wrong. And look, I love all the studies being done. I think all that stuff is good. And I think we need to acknowledge and understand that these studies, they're great, right? Like that book work is amazing. And I'm not even going to be like, oh, these guys are nerds or any of that. I know I've heard it. No, look, they're doing the Lord's work. They're doing great work. Where I work, we don't hit fires through windows. We really don't. And I'll tell you why. There's been a number of times I've been on out of town fires, pushing a hallway, searching, and somebody hits a hard fire and they don't do it the right way, or they're not quite paying attention, or their pattern's wrong, or they're whipping the nozzle around and they've run fire. I get you can't push fire, okay? You know, like
They
I understand
change
that.
the flow path over top of you.
What they have done, you can't push fire, but I'll tell you what you definitely can push because I've had the experiences and the bandages to prove it. You can push smoke and heat.
Mm-hmm.
And so where I work, we oftentimes, I won't say never, but we oftentimes will move past visible fire and opt for that compartmentalized area of attack for a couple reasons. And this is kind of to your point, why like before you jump down a guy's throat, maybe hear what he's got going on, right? Because if I get that line to the seat of the fire and I don't disturb the house, I'm leaving the house a little bit more pristine for the guys who are trying to find the seat, right? Because you got one lieutenant searching up that
Mm-hmm.
hallway, and you need a good neutral plane for him to be able to see. And then, like,
Yes.
fuck me, right? Like, I got gear. I got two, three, four, five, $6,000 worth of stuff on me, right? And I'm smart. I'm smart enough to know that if I'm standing up and I'm getting pushed to the floor, I need to take a knee. And if I'm on my knee and I'm getting pushed to the floor, I need to start hipping. You know, I'm smart enough to know that. But the citizens who are down at floor level, they don't have a choice. They're either barely awake or most of the time completely incapacitated. And if we start pushing a bunch of nonsense through the house, it's not so much that now it's hard for the searchers to search. It's more difficult for the searchers to search, which is going to delay the search. And we have mixed that building. And any good instructor knows that. What's one of the things you tell the kids when you get them into their first live fire and you're talking fire behavior and you hit the fireman? You go, before you open that nozzle, kid, take a good look because this is the last good look you're going to get. And if you're teaching really aggressive engine tactics, one of the things you're going to tell that guy is you pop that door, you give it a 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, you let that neutral plane settle so I can see if I got a basement fire, see if it's completely clear, or if I got that good neutral plane and I know I'm working on the floor of, I'm going to take a peek real low down that hallway or across that room and I'm going to get that last good picture because as soon as I start mixing it up in that building, as soon as I start changing what the fire has set that building up to do and equalized everything out and all the pressures and all the heat, and it's kind of the building's at rest and it's kind of doing what it wants to do and it's in its flow. As soon as I start introducing water to that aggressively, 150 gallons a minute, I'm gonna make everything less tenable for a second, you know. And so when somebody says like, if you walk by visible fire, you are wrong. Like I'd be like, no, I don't agree with that. I understand what your study says. I understand that it's going to lower the temperature in the house overall. I understand all of that. But for the most part, smoke kills people.
Mm-hmm.
Smoke is usually what kills people.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
think they
certainly
say
what,
80% of people that die in fires are from a chemical exposure, which is a smoke,
yeah.
not the
And
thermal insult.
and it's certainly what complicates everything else. You know, so again, I'm not saying transitional attack is bad. What I'm kind of talking about here is if you say transitional, like skipping a transitional attack makes you a bad fireman, makes you an ignorant fireman, or you say like you should never walk past visible fire. I don't know how you could say that. As a fireman working where I work and doing what I do, 9 times out of 10, working past that visible fire has been the answer. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and it's been the answer for victim removal as well. So, you know, I just think before we jump to conclusions and start like really hammering people, it'd be a good idea to hear, you know, like I said earlier, we fight fires on tank water. We carry 1,000-gallon tanks. You know, so if you're going to tell me like, oh, you can't send a guy in there without a positive water supply, I'm like, yes, we can. As a matter of fact, I think I have to. That's what the citizens expect of me, you know. And then it's the same thing, right? Like A lot of times the nozzleman might not have a backup guy. The backup guy ends up being the doorman and he's working the door. He's like, no, you must have. It's like, no, listen, it's a good idea to have, but you need to hear what I got going on over here before we jump to all these conclusions.
I love it, and we're so like minded because I've had that conversation before, even when slicers first came out for all the UL studies on Governor's Island with New York City, and we've all seen it, right? And I understand. Hey, if I do a transitional attack, I knock down the BTUs in that building. But my question from day one was because fire service, right? We like to swing that pendulum extreme at times,
It's
and
the
there was a
kind of guys we
time,
are, you know,
yeah, and it
like
was a
we're
time like
extremists.
yeah, so it's like exactly what you said. As soon as we start saying the American Fire Service, you will always or you will never, we're losing. Because like I tell guys, like we don't operate in black and white. We operate gray all day long because the conditions should dictate our actions. And I've had the same argument. I'm like, there's going to be times where I will absolutely not want to knock down the bulk of the fire from the exterior because of 8,000 different things you just said. And I agree with all of them because there is points when it is, but my backup to that is, hey, if I'm a command officer on that call and you do walk by fire, I might ask you, hey, why? Hey, Free, why'd you walk past that?
100%.
All
Yeah.
I'm looking for is that you were thinking instead of what I don't want to hear is, oh shit, I didn't see that fire. Oh, that's a fucking bad thing. Or, hey, boss, I never knock down fire from the exterior. I don't like that answer either. But you're like, hey, man, because of this and this and that, and we were doing a quick push, and I knew the location, we were going to secure the door, whatever it was. If you're thinking, bro, cool. That's all I wanted to know.
100%. Man, we get into so many, like, especially nowadays, like the new hot thing is like the roof, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
and Orion did a tremendous job talking about that. But it hits on this thing that we do in the fire service all the time is human beings love answers, right? Like when I come home and my wife looks at me, I cook, she cooks, we both cook. If she doesn't feel like cooking for the evening and she's like, hey, what are we going to have for dinner? What she wants to hear is like, oh, we're going to do baked ziti. My wife doesn't want to hear that there's an endless supply of food that we could cook with the ingredients we have at home. And I think that's where in the fire service, because we're human, we end up leaning towards always and never, right? Like okay, hey, this lowers the BTUs in the building. It lower BTUs are better. And it becomes an always thing, or it becomes, hey, somebody, and I don't, have we lost anybody because of the vertical ventilation? Like I know guys fall through roofs and stuff, but like not the number of firemen getting hurt in vertical ventilation compared to all of the other things that are getting firemen, I think is a much more offset number. But it becomes one of these things where it's like, oh, that is dangerous. We must never do it. And it's like, well, wait a second. This is a nuanced thing, right? Like this is dangerous for the firefighter going to the roof, but it's going to remove the products of combustion from the building, which are going to make it safer for civilians. Well, I didn't sign up necessarily. The first question in my head, and I'm sure someone's going to hate this, but the first question in my head when I step off the rig is not, how can I be the safest possible at this call? The first question is, what do I need to do?
Mm-hmm.
And then the next question is, how can I get that done as efficiently, and safely as possible? I don't step off the rig thinking about, I don't know how you could. If you did, crawling down a smoky, burning hallway is not safe. Like the answer to that question is, how can I be as safe as possible? 9 times out of 10, there's nobody in the building. 9 times out of 10, the exposure risk is mitigatable and something to, put a line over here and a line over here, burn it down, save the foundation. If we were only worried about how to do it as safely as possible, then the answer to most problems is to let the thing burn. But that's not what we did. That's not what we said we would do, right? So, so it's, the new hotness is talking about vertical ventilation, but you used to hear this all the time. Like I know guys who get a little bit worried about making a push when there's fire venting through the roof. That was the real hot thing for a long time, right? Remember that? There was a real short period of time where people were talking about, oh, it's venting through the roof. We can't do an interior attack. Wait a second. What do you mean we can't do an interior attack? You just sent a bunch of guys at the last fire up to the roof to make sure it would vent through the roof. And this fire just happened to have self-vented. Awesome. I know where it is. It's all going up and out. Like, why can't I push that roof? Now, that becomes an always and never thing, right? Like now if I see obvious signs of imminent collapse, or the body of fire is too heavy to attack, But that's another thing. Like, you always talk about like searchable space. And it's kind of like this always versus never. Well, I think one of the few places that we can say always is we should always push as hard as we can, and we should never stop until we are told by the fire that we must. And what I mean by that is, hey, there's a lot of fire in that back bedroom. It is blown out of the window. It is starting to come through, the corner of the roof up over there. It's going to be a hot push. Lou, I got you. I'll push. If I get down that hallway and I need to take a knee, then I'll take a knee. And if I get down that hallway and I need to start getting even lower than that, then I'll get lower than that. The fire will tell you when you can't be in that space. The fire decides what occupiable space is. And then when we get to a place where it's like, look, we can't push any further. We know we're starting to get bee stings. It's starting to get too hot. The push is here, and knock it down, and then maybe we can move forward. Then we can start deciding that, okay, now we can't go past that point. But if you don't go up to that point, then you don't know where that point is. And it's the same with searchable space, right? Like, if I don't attempt to occupy the space, I don't know if I can occupy it for extinguishment, or if a civilian could be occupying it and I should be searching it. And that's another one of those things that I hear a lot of always and never. Like, I'm not a big fan of survivability profiling. I don't like looking at something and going, it looks like maybe, probably, that's not going to be good. No shit, it's not good. The thing's on fire. Nothing about this is good for anybody that's in there. In a couple minutes, when you're in there, it's not going to be good for you. But you got to make that push. And the fire will tell you, hey, this is unoccupiable space. And I don't think there's anything wrong with letting firemen get that experience to make those calls.
Yeah, and it's my buddy Noah Katz of Phoenix Fire says it the best, so I try to give him credit every time I say it. But I like what you said. I like to say searchable space, not survivable space.
Yeah.
Couple things, right? Survivable space is figured out by God, right? Nobody else.
Yeah,
I cannot look at I can't look at a room and say, I know exactly the temperatures of from floor to ceiling from the exterior. It's impossible, right? What he says is searchable space is, he asks 3 questions every time he rolls up. He goes, do I have the PPE? Do I have the training? And do I have the personnel? He goes, if I have yes to all 3,
hell yeah,
we're going. And I don't need to ask permission because I've done my self-check, right? And I love how he looks at that, and I've adopted that mindset because to me it makes the most sense. Is the crew right that day, either depending on the guys that are assigned to me or the lack of guys assigned to me, right? What's my PPE looking like compared to the conditions, right? And do I have the training? Do I feel comfortable doing it? If the answer is yes, we are going, or I am going, whatever 100%. The scenario is, right? And again, we can't decide that on a whiteboard or on a slide on the computer or in training. It is, I feel wholeheartedly, that first arriving suppression officer with the limited information he has at dark 30, he's making that decision. So shame on us as training officers if we ever tell somebody, yes, you will, or no, you won't, because we don't know what that house is that day. We don't. It's impossible. So like when I show slideshows of fires, I'm like, hey, like especially in a ladder class, hey, would you vent that? Would you search that? I'm just looking for answers. And some guys are like, yeah, because of boom, boom, boom. No, because of boom, boom, boom. They're like, so what's the answer? I'm like, I don't know. Right. And they're like, what do you mean you don't know? I'm like, I'm not there. I have no idea. No clue. I'm like, and then I start pointing out things. I'm like, is that turbulent smoke? I can't tell from the picture,
Yeah.
You see the line in there or whatever. I'm like, is that in the attic, or is it coming from the attic, or is self-vented? I don't know. I'm not there. Like there's so many things. And all I'm trying to prove a point is to keep your eyes open, right? Look at the big picture and then make a solid decision. And if it's wrong, it's wrong. We'll figure it out later. We'll learn from it. But hey, make a freaking decision and then just roll with it. But make an educated decision because of training and the information we've given you. I just don't want to tell you what to do because that's not my job.
100%. The way I always like to look at it and say it is like, I have to try. I have to attempt to occupy the space. I've got to attempt to occupy the space to put this fire out. I've got to attempt to occupy the space to find out if it's searchable. If I can't physically occupy the space, then that's from the engine attack perspective. That's where my firefight starts.
Yep.
And where I work, we're not one of these places we use fog nozzles and we could talk about that. I think a narrow fog puts a lot of fire out. And I think the smoothbore cartel guys that are like, if it ain't smooth, it ain't, you're not fighting with it. I think, again, I could do a lot of really great things with that fog nozzle, but if I push and push and push, we're not one of these places where you don't open the nozzle on smoke. We absolutely do if it needs done. And the way I know it needs done is by occupying the space. And if I'm under smoke that doesn't need to be cooled, then I can keep pushing. And it's not saying that we wait until the worst time ever to open that nozzle, but what I am saying is, we don't know if we can push it until we try to push it. Don't push too far. We don't know if we can search it until we try to search it. Don't search too far. Do not get in over your head, but you can't make that decision from the front door most of the time, unless it's an obvious, right? Like you got a whole floor of nothing but fire, right? And we all know what those things are. Within a couple jobs, a job or two, you should be able to be like, oh, the room has flashed. I am obviously not telling anybody to crawl into a room that is flashed, but you got to go to know.
But I am telling you to knock it down and then occupy it.
100%. And that's the thing. No question.
But that's what gets lost in translation. I feel like sometimes when guys are like, their initial tactic is, shit, that is fire in every opening that I can see. It's defensive. No, you're just knocking it down. That's your transition attack. You're going to knock it down to occupy that structure to find out. Or, we might do a 360 pivot and realize, hey, the entire front of that building's on fire, but maybe the rear is not. And we could have 1,000 square feet not involved, but we don't know from the front of that building, until we look, and it's up to the guys. Like, I love what you said, like, let the guys work and decide what is occupiable, what's not, by attempting. And they're going to be smart. We train them enough. If they attempt and it's a no-go, it's a no-go till we change that atmosphere.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, two good stories. One fire I was on and one fire that my senior guy told me about. We had a fire. This was a senior man had this fire, and this thing is rocking. The whole first floor is like room to room to room fire, just all of them. So very long story short, like they go in and they do what guys in my department do. They just start pushing, and we're going to knock out the front room. Then we're going to knock out the hallway. Then we're going to knock out the bedroom. Then we're going to knock out the back bedroom. There's a lady in the bathroom with the door closed. She's fine. They're doing overhaul. They get to the door looking for fire extension. They open it up and sitting on the tub. And she's fine. And when I say she's fine, I mean she's fine. Like, she's not like, she's fine.
Yeah.
The whole first floor was going, Like, never in a million years would you have thought there's going to be a person in there in a robe sitting on the bathtub doing all right. And she was like nonplussed when they opened the door, apparently. She's like, oh, you're here.
Hey guys, thanks. What took you so long? Right?
Yeah.
But imagine setting up a couple mains and then drowning that whole house out and killing her. Could you imagine?
Or causing a collapse or God knows what, And that's the thing. I think ultimately that's what we're talking about, right? Like, give it a good shot. I mean, for Christ's sake, you join the rugby team to play rugby.
Yeah.
Join the fucking fire department to fight some fires.
Yeah. I don't know anybody that joined the fire service to be like, you know what? I love running EMS calls. I hope we don't ever get a fire. No one that I have ever met that said that. And if I did, I would probably slap them in the face. Like, well, you joined the fire department, it's like, what right. in the world? I got into kids one day. We were doing like hey, why'd you join the fire service? And I'm hearing all these interview answers, like 40 people. Like, I want to help people. And none of the answers are wrong. They're all good answers. Hey, my dad was, I want to help people. I want to do this. I want to help all the kids, help somebody in their worst possible time. I waited and I am biting my lip. Like, I am getting heated. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm trying to calm myself down as I'm listening to answer after answer, and finally gets to number 40 and it's done. And they're getting ready. And I'm like, immediately going to my boss. I'm like, stand by, boss. I got something to say real quick. And I stand up and I'm like, no one said they want to fight fire. I'm like, that's why I joined. And
I want to go to jobs.
Guys are scared, I think, to be honest with that. It's like, hey, this job is amazing. It's adrenaline rush. We want to fight fire. Everything else is merely interesting. I joke with the guys. I'm like, the only good thing about EMS calls is I get to pre-plan that house. I get to pre-plan that style. I get to pre-plan that business because I'm paying attention to those things. If it's not a legit medical, which 90% of them are not, and everyone that has to run EMS in the fire service knows that, 10% are legit and they're fun. Those are fun EMS calls, right? Everything else is just like, I'm looking around. Hey, is this a house converted to a nursing home? Did they put sprinklers in? How many residents do they have here? Where are they located? Did they convert the garage to a bed? Those are the things going in my brain. And that's why I try to teach the fucking probies and the rookies. I'm like, take advantage of the mundane calls to be better at what really matters and what we all signed up to do, which is fight fire. At least I hope so,
Yeah,
you know?
100%.
If not, you
Yeah, I
just
mean,
be a medic for a private ambulance company if you don't want to fight fire, you know?
I love going to jobs. Like
Yeah.
it's just that simple, right? Like I turn up every day at the rig, and every day I go, I hope I get a fire.
Yeah.
And I work somewhere where I'm lucky enough that,
It's
a
a good
good number of
probability.
time of years. Yeah. That's one of the things that we'll talk about sometimes is like, we just happen to work in one of those departments where it's like, yeah, a fire could happen any day.
Yeah.
This is definitely not the old Andy Fredericks thing that he complained about where it's like, don't touch that nozzle, kid. Like, it's like, no, get up there and make sure that thing's up there because there's a good chance you're going to need it today.
Yeah. Dude, well, good. Well, listen, we could talk for hours. I already know that because prior to recording, we were probably yapping for at least an hour. So without mind numbing the listeners anymore for the ones that made
Yeah.
it this far, right? Is there, before we transition into kind of closing out the episode and answering a couple questions for the end of the season, is there anything you want to leave the audience with, my brother?
No, I would like to say just to like my good friends and mentors, like I appreciate you guys. You guys know who you are. I don't think we're anything without our crew, and so a lot of people have stood behind me and make me the fireman that I am. And just be passionate, love the job, be a tradesman, and get after it. Really, I think if you do that, if you just come at the fire service from a place of humility and really honestly just trying to get after it, then you're doing the Lord's work. And if we could all just do that and then acknowledge when people are doing that in front of us and be like, hey, man, maybe I don't agree with everything you do or say, but like you're being humble and you're fucking getting after it, like good for you, then, that's the best thing that there is.
I love it. There's no better way to close out an episode than with exactly what you said. So again, dude, thank you for your time. Let me ask you a couple questions here that we get to ask everybody. So the why. So this is just whatever you want to say, but why? Why did you get involved in the American Fire Service? When did the bug bite you? Did you come across it by accident? Was that buddy? So just, if you don't mind breaking down to the listeners, how'd you get to where you're at right now?
Man, so I had kind of a weird thing, right? Like I bounced around a lot in life and for a long time I thought I wanted to go into the military and I maybe I was going to be a music teacher or whatever. I don't come from a fire service family. And so like I was bouncing around a community college one day and I ran into a buddy and I was like, hey, what are you doing with your life now that college is over? And he's like, oh, I'm going to be a paramedic. And I was like, cool, whatever, that sounds cool. So I went to EMT school and I went to a south suburb fire department for my ride time. And man, I'll never forget this. There was a lieutenant, just a wiry little guy with a handlebar mustache. And so we're sitting there and I'm trying to get this ride time done, hang out for fire. And he's like, come on, kid, jump on the rig. And I was like, what? And he's like, get in the back seat. Let's fucking go. So I get in the back seat. They show up. There's smoke coming out of the top of this house. And I just remember, I swear to God. So he gets off the rig and he turns around and he looks at me and he winks and he walks up to the front door and just mule kicks it in and smoke starts rolling out. And I just remember in that instant, I was like, I want to do that. Like, I want to be a guy. And it was a Sunday too. So like he cooked breakfast that day. He cooked breakfast for the whole shift. We had pancakes and we went to that fire. And I just remember sitting in the back jump seat and I watched him. He just looked back at me and just mule kicked that door. And then no hesitation, mask not even on, just boom, right up the stairs. And I just remember in that instant, it was like my whole personality catalyzed around that job. And I was like, holy shit, I want to mule kick a door in and like run up and fight a fire. And it was just off to the races after that.
Dude, that's awesome. It's cool that you had that experience because imagine where your life would be right now if he didn't invite you to get on the freaking wagon with you, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
Who knows?
he could have just, yeah, he could have had me stay back because I was just, a dirty outside student rider. He didn't have to, he made pancakes for everybody that day. Like he was just, and the thing is, so the funny thing is, when I got my EMT, that actually ended up being the first department I worked for in '07, and he ended up being my lieutenant. Yeah, he ended up being my lieutenant. And so the first fire I ever went to in my life, I went to with him.
That's awesome.
In a building, much like the building I watched him, it was a 3-story multi. and we banged out for a 3-story multi. And he did the same thing. He came off the rig, and I was pulling the line, and he looked back at me and smiled and just mule kicked this door, and then he went, "Get that line over here." So yeah, it really did. I think it fundamentally changed the course of my life.
Dude, that's amazing. All right, so now we know the why. So let's talk about traditions. So something out here, I would actually say across the nation right now, and how society is that we're losing a lot of American Fire Service traditions because of the quote unquote word hazing, which I don't agree with. But again, my personal opinion. I'm curious though, what is your favorite American Fire Service tradition? Doesn't have to be in your department, but what is it? But more importantly, why? Why do you love it so much?
I'm going to give you my second favorite because everybody keeps
Okay.
talking about the kitchen table.
Mm-hmm.
And so my favorite fire service tradition is red shift breakfast. And it's just getting
Okay.
the guys around a table. But I'll give you one that we specifically do.
Okay.
We have a first fire ice cream rule.
Hmm.
When you go to your first fire, you must buy, as a rookie, the whole shift ice cream. And it better be good ice cream too. We're not talking like 99-cent ice cream bars. And it is a little jaggy, right? So as we're getting back from the fire, when we're picking up, everybody's busting the kids' balls and be like, "Oh, you didn't do this right. That's ice cream. That's ice cream." Or, "Oh, this is your first job.
Yeah.
Maybe when you learn how to be a fireman, you won't have to do this, but for now it's ice cream." And it is, for the reasons you said, I wanted to bring this up because like some people might look at it and say like, "Oh, it's hazing. Like this guy's making the least amount of money out of everybody on the crew. He went to his first job. You're busting his balls. He's got to buy the whole crew ice cream. Like he's got to go out in the utility vehicle, find a store that's open, bring the ice cream back on that shift, give it to everybody else. He eats last." It's just this whole thing, right? Well, the reason I love it is because it's the fire service. We bust each other's balls from a place of love. We're hard on each other because we know what it is we do and what we might be required to do. It's a beautiful tradition because, you are the new guy and you are breaking into our crew. You're trying to join our gang. We're not trying to join yours. And it
Mm-hmm.
sets that in motion. But the other thing it does is it's a reward for a job well done. It gives everybody a chance to talk shit. It lets the new guy know, hey, this is a fun job. This isn't, it's super serious, but it's also something that we want you to be a part of. We want you to have a good time. We want you to know that we're making fun of you because we love you. And
Yeah.
I think it's a tremendous tradition. And I hope in my house and in my department, we never see anything like that go away because of hazing. Because at the end of the day, it's not hazing. It's done in love.
Yeah.
It's done to make you a part of the gang.
And that's what I feel like, and not to call out anyone that has their bugles crossed, but at some point you become disconnected if you've been out of a firehouse for too long, and you kind of start buying into what you're hearing from either politics or the news or society in general. And I get it, because if you explain that to anybody else, they're like, yeah, like he should file a complaint against you guys, right? Like that
Right.
is
Yeah.
100, you're singling them out, blah, 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 blah. But
Yep.
what guys
Yep.
forget, right, is it's part of our coping mechanism. It is
Yeah.
what brings us closer together. It is what makes us a family. And I almost have to remind guys that have siblings, like, hey, you love your brother, you love your sister. You're like, yeah. Hey, when you were growing up, did you guys fight? Did you pick on each other? Yeah, of course, because you love each other. That is why. And
100%.
it's not hazing. It's not, it's like, don't, I get it. Don't put it on YouTube. Don't put it on Instagram. Keep it within the four walls and just enjoy each other. But it is something that we need, right? And when you take it away, it decreases morale. As soon as you decrease morale, we start running into, hey, guys are piping up off patients on calls. It's like, it, we need those traditions to maintain what we do every day, because guys are not, society is not designed to handle what we have to face and accomplish every single day and then put that over 25 years.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's
100%.
horrible. It's the human body's not designed to do that. But now you put a bunch of type A personalities and you get to mess with each other. It just makes it better. It makes it so
100%.
we can deal with it. And we're sharing that turmoil. We're there for each other. It's positive. And I hate the fact that it's looked at from the outside sometimes, which sucks. I just don't know the
Well,
answer how to
so,
fix it.
and even as a young officer, a new officer, like I'm a let the men be men. And I am one of the men. Like I didn't change when I became an officer. I got a bugle.
Yeah.
I still joke around. I still laugh. I'm not one of these guys who's like, "Oh no, it's got to be this way,
Yeah.
or it's got to be
Yeah.
that way." But one of the
Blowing on
things,
that bugle. Yeah.
like I still clean the toilets. I
Yeah.
will kick the rookie out of the bathroom. Be like, no, 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 I clean the toilet. That's a plunger. You go find something else to do. But one of the things that I think people need to remember when they start like, oh, that's hazing, or like the outsiders are trying to look in on our traditions and pass judgment. Well, look,
Mhm.
the stress of the job is not for you, and neither are our traditions. You don't
Bingo.
have a place to evaluate this from, honestly. And everybody in the fire service who's not a mutt knows I'm not talking about actually harassing somebody.
There is a
Everybody in the
difference.
fire
Yeah.
service knows where that line is. But what I think the civilians need to remember is nobody wants a warrior until the enemy is at the gates.
Mhm.
And so before you look from the outside on our traditions and like, yeah, like we're going to make the kid go get ice cream and we're going to fuck with him. When he brings back chocolate chip, we're going to send him back to the store and be like, nobody here eats that. Get moose tracks. And if he would have brought moose tracks the first time, we're sending him back for French vanilla.
Mhm.
It's a game and you can't understand the game because you're not playing it.
Mhm.
And trust me when I say that which you care for, you come to love, and shared suffering builds shared bonding. And so if you don't have those experiences, you have nothing but an outsider's opinion and you can't evaluate these things.
Dude, what a freaking solid answer, man. And that was your number 2, which is even better.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so let's get to the last question. So my favorite question, snap your fingers, zero sweat equity, instant gratification. You can change something in the American Fire Service. And that's anywhere. Again, doesn't have to be your department. It absolutely can too. But what would it be? But more importantly, why would you change this?
I didn't freeze.
No, it's all right. You're thinking, I see the
I
smoke
would,
coming out of your ears.
yeah, yeah. If I could snap my fingers and change something, and we're talking about like a genie scenario, because this really would
Yeah,
be like a genie
it is.
scenario.
Yeah, genie in a bottle. Absolutely.
So what I would do is I would give everybody, every rookie, every single rookie in every department, everywhere, somehow magically, 1 full year with that crew. And what I mean by that crew is a crew that goes to jobs with a solid engineer, a solid barn boss, who's no bullshit, tough, tough love, a solid senior man who is a tradesman and has passion for the job, and another pipeman working with him that knows the business. And the reason I would do that is because I think that would fix everything wrong with the fire service. Because at the end of the day, I don't think the problems we have, like we have no funding where I work. I don't think that that's our biggest problem. You know, I don't think our biggest problem is anything other than guys not getting an honest look at what the fire service is really about by being around that crew that goes to jobs and is hardcore, old school, tough love. I don't think enough guys are getting that look to honestly know what the fire service is about and then to decide either I want to be a part of this or I want to be a part of something else. And there's a lot of ways to do that. You can leave the service, you can go to a different place, you can go to a place that's a little slower, you could go do something else. You could specialize, in fire prevention or something. There's a lot of options. But if you were at least exposed for a year to that crew, you would know if this is for you. And if it is for you, man, you're going to take away everything that that senior man is, everything that that barn boss is, everything that that tough love firehouse is, everything about the fire service can be shown to you in a year. And then you could spend 29 years chasing it. And if there was one thing I could change about the fire service, that's what I would do is I would give everybody a full year in that crew. And at the end of that, you'd know everything you need to do. You'd know how hard you need to train. You'd know how hard you need to study. You'd know a lot about fire attack. You'd know a lot about the job. You'd know a lot about the job too, not just the going and putting fires out, but you'd know how it works and like simple things like the men take care of themselves. You don't rat on your crew. You don't cross the floor. That's what we call it. You don't go to admin when you got a problem. You handle it at the salt pile. And if somebody offends you, you'd let them know, hey, you fucking offended me, and we'll have words, and then we'll step back and we'll be okay after it. But that's what I would do. I think the problem with the fire service isn't, and yeah, like we need money and we need all these things, right? We need to get aggressive, but that's the thing, right? That's what I'm saying is if you were with that crew, you'd be aggressive. You'd see what it is, and you'd be like, I am not one of these lions, or this is what I was meant to do, and I can see myself out or here's where I am and I have a lot of work to do, or like this is all I've ever wanted to be. But you got to be exposed to it to get infected by it.
I love that. And that is, I feel like that pays it forward so many times too, because that guy that is exposed to that crew, like we said, becomes part of that crew later on in life. You know, he
Hmm.
becomes a senior man or maybe that engineer or that
Yep.
suppression officer because that's what he grew up in. And that's what he wants, and that's what he knows is the American Fire Service, dude. No one has ever answered the question like that, and it makes the most sense to me. You're right, because all the answers that would fix all of them, because you're steeping those guys initially, indoctrinating them. This is what the fire service is supposed to be like, and then we're running with it, and they're like, and exactly what you said. After a year, you know if it's for you or it's not, you know,
Yeah.
and if it's not, hey, no shade, bro. Like you're saying, hey, you want to be a fire inspector, or hey, you want to get completely out of the American Fire Service. That's okay too.
Be
But
a carpenter.
if
I mean,
not,
the world needs people to build houses.
yeah, if not, you're in, and you're in for the right reasons, and then
Yeah.
you can pass it on to the next guy. Like, hey, man, like that was my crew. Like now I get to, and it builds so much. It would for me, it would build so much pride into my department because I'm like, hey, I remember what I went through. I want to give that to that next guy. You know,
Yeah.
hey, when I had a really bad day, that senior man grabbed me and said, you know, maybe just had a heart to heart with me, bro. You fucked up, but it's okay. We got you, right?
Yeah.
You learned a valuable lesson. Like I might be beating myself up because I care so much, right?
Yeah.
And that senior guy
100%.
going, dude, let me tell you how I fucked up even worse in that kind of same scenario. And look at me, I'm fine. Like you'll get over it. Let's learn from it. I mean, even like the shitty
Yeah.
days, you're right. It would solve everything, dude. I love it. Well,
It hits on two things that I always remind myself, which is if the beginning is good, the end is easy,
okay.
and that which you care for, you come to love. And I think if just every rookie could spend a year with quote unquote that crew, man, just think of what that would do for the fire service.
Oh my God.
I think I think it would be like if I could snap my fingers and just be like, hey, break in case of glass. We got 30 new rookies. Here's 30 that crew. We'll just unpackage them and boom, lay them down. Hey, you're here with these guys for a year. And at the end of that year, you're going to know, you're going to have the plan laid out. The beginning is good, so the end will be easy.
Dude, I love it. Well, I can't end an episode any better than leaving it just like that. So we're gonna toss it to the side and say, thank you for spending time with us. Thank you for taking time out of your day, coming off shift and then out of the gym and then right into a podcast. So, dude, I appreciate you so much. Is there anything else you want to leave the audience with? Because, dude, that was fucking.
No, again, just I appreciate you having me on. I really do. Thanks to my friends and mentors, to my wife, who is amazing. Like you heard at the
Yeah.
beginning, we canceled our honeymoon so I could go stand in line at Academy. And just everybody who's had an impact on me, like I love going to Academy so I can learn from those guys, really, honestly. So just, thanks to everybody in the fire service who's really, you know, given me an opportunity to be a part of something.
Dude, that's all it is. And then passing it down to the next guy. I tell dudes all the time, none of us were born with this. Somebody took time out of their day to teach us, and I believe it's now our job to do the same for the next crew coming up. And you feel the
Yeah,
same. You're an instructor. I'm an instructor. That's why I do it, because someone took a chance
100%.
on me as a snot-nosed kid. And I want to do the same for somebody else to be, honestly, to be better firemen than I am. That's the
Yeah,
ultimate goal. I want them to be better
yeah,
than I am.
100%.
So,
Yeah,
dude,
yeah,
yeah.
100%. And thanks to
So,
anybody who listened for 2 hours.
yeah, right. And yeah, and thank you again. Thank you again. This is just a personal opinion of two firemen sitting down talking. Hopefully, you guys took something away from this. I personally, as a host, took something away from this. So it's been amazing, Keith. Thank you for your time, my brother. And we will catch you guys in another 2 weeks. Have a good one. Thanks for listening. We'll be back in another 2 weeks. Remember to like, share, review if you can. Helps drive traffic to our podcast. Remember, let's leave our ego out of the fire service. It's amazing what we can accomplish when no one's looking for credit. Much love. Let's stop beating our own and become better firemen. Catch you next time.